I have an 8-year-old mother who is sick in bed, and I have children who haven't even reached the age of 3 who are crying piteously for food. If you take my life today, they won't be able to survive. You've taken 3 lives in one go. When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she was stunned. Yes, if what he said was true, she really didn't know what to do. This person was so despicable. He sent people to rob her and even used a dagger. If she didn't have any martial arts to defend herself, wouldn't she be bullied by him? But if she let them go, Zhong Xiaohua couldn't help but think of her own family's experience in Lu Town. Wasn't that the case? Her heart was unwilling to accept this. Just as she was in a dilemma, the few men who had applauded and cheered just now came closer. The square-faced man at the front cupped his hands and said, "Little brother, this one is Yuan Changqing. Greetings." Zhong Xiaohua saw that the other party was being polite. She didn't know who he was, but she did as she was told. That Yuan Changqing saw Zhong Xiaohua frown and knew what he was thinking. He laughed and said, "Little brother, please don't take offense. This one is a little impetuous. However, I'm not familiar with this person, so please don't worry." Hearing this, Zhong Xiaohua was even more puzzled. If you were acquainted with this wretched brother Fan, you could have come over to persuade him. He could have just let you go. If you didn't know this person, why did you come over? Thus, Yuan Changqing explained the reason in full detail. It turned out that when Zhong Xiaohua was inquiring about the situation with the shop assistant at Food for the Sky, this Yuan Changqing had heard everything. Even when Brother Fan stood up and looked at him with ill intentions, this trained escort had seen it all. Perhaps he could ignore other people, but this young man was inquiring about Pingyang City. He reckoned that he was most likely from Pingyang City. Since he was from Pingyang City, then Yuan Changqing couldn't just sit by and watch. Just as Zhong Xiaohua left the restaurant, the few people who had eaten and drank to their heart's content also paid the bill and left under Yuan Changqing's suggestion. Then, they followed behind Zhong Xiaohua from a distance. Brother Fan purposely bumped into Zhong Xiaohua and the group of ruffians surrounding Zhong Xiaohua. This was all seen by Yuan Changqing and the rest. A few impatient men wanted to go forward, but Yuan Changqing saw that Zhong Xiaohua looked relaxed and didn't seem to be afraid at all. He pulled the rest aside to watch the show. It was only when Zhong Xiaohua used the Fist of the North Star and knocked down the ruffians that the crowd couldn't help but applaud and praise. Hearing this, Zhong Xiaohua understood that there were still some kind-hearted people in the pugilistic world. However, she was even more puzzled. Why couldn't they help her when she was from Pingyang City? Thus, Zhong Xiaohua asked, "Brother Yuan, it should be natural for people in the pugilistic world to help when they see injustice on the road. When you saw me being bullied by the ruffians in your town, you should have helped me without hesitation. Why did you say that you didn't have to help me?" Yuan Changqing and the rest blushed a little and said awkwardly, "Little brother, you don't know. We are like you and came from afar. A powerful dragon can't defeat a local snake. Isn't it better to avoid trouble if we can?" Zhong Xiaohua suddenly understood and asked again, "Then why do you want to help me?" Yuan Changqing said, "Haha, the reason is very simple. Because we are also from Pingyang City." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she said in surprise, "Really? That's great. I was just worrying about how to go home. With you guys around, we can go together. Haha, at least you can tell me where this is and how I can return to Pingyang City." Yuan Changqing smiled and said, "Of course. When fellow townsmen meet, their eyes are brimming with tears. How can we not help you? Oh right, I haven't asked you. Why did your best move look so familiar to me? But I just can't remember where I saw it before. Can you tell me?" Zhong Xiaohua thought for a while and said embarrassedly, "The last move you mentioned should be one of the Liuhe fists. But I can't remember the name. I haven't completely mastered it and it's different from the standard Liuhe fists. You might be able to remember it if you think again." Yuan Changqing was enlightened and said sympathetically, "Little brother is right. Now that you mention it, I can really distinguish it. It seems to be called killing in all directions. However, this Liuhe fists is indeed difficult to learn. I have practiced it for a long time but I still haven't mastered it. It seems that only our head Zhong is the best at this." Zhong Xiaohua didn't mind and said with a smile, "But you are still better than me. I will forget whatever I practice." "You should be happy," Yuan Changqing said in surprise, "but little brother showed off his prowess just now. I can see that your martial arts are also very exquisite." Zhong Xiaohua waved her hand and said, "That was all pieced together by me. My martial arts are mediocre. If I were to practice with these people, I would have been defeated long ago." After saying that, she glared fiercely at Brother Fan and the others who were kneeling on the ground. Brother Fan saw that this group of people knew each other and that he couldn't afford to offend them. He could only obediently kneel and smile. Zhong Xiaohua didn't have any ideas and asked Yuan Changqing. Yuan Changqing thought for a while and said with a smile, "Little brother, you don't have to care about what he said. It's just a lie. At his age, how can he have an 8-year-old mother? He might have sons from 3 dynasties, but most of them are fake. You don't have to worry about anything. And these people are just local ruffians who only extort idle people. I don't think they would dare to do great evil." When Brother Fan heard that, he echoed, "That's right. Little master, please spare our lives. We are just making some spare money." "What evil can we do?" Zhong Xiaohua said angrily. "Then how can you pick up a dagger? Isn't that harming people's lives? Do you dare say that you haven't harmed people's lives?" When Brother Fan heard that, he defended himself even more. "Little master, I know how to distinguish. Aren't I furious? I didn't expect to lose face in front of a little killing god like you. That's why I made a move. Look at our methods. What kind of outrageous things can we do? Our hands are clean. No lives have been taken." Zhong Xiaohua didn't quite believe him. She turned to look at Yuan Changqing. Yuan Changqing nodded, indicating that his words were trustworthy. He whispered in her ear, "Even if there is something outrageous, we are still foreigners. We don't understand the local situation. And with his situation, even if we send him to the authorities, it's just a formality. It's meaningless. Why don't we just teach him a lesson and let him go?" When Zhong Xiaohua heard that, she knew what to do. She kicked Brother Fan and said, "I'll believe you for now. In the future, don't do such things that harm people. If I see you again, hehe, it won't be so easy." When Brother Fan heard that, he was overjoyed. He said, I know. Thank you for sparing our lives. I'll take them back and plan for their future. I won't do such things again." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, he curled his lips and thought to himself, "You make it sound better than singing. Who would believe you?" At this time, the others also woke up. They supported each other. When they heard Zhong Xiaohua let go, they supported each other and prepared to leave with Brother Fan. But before they could take a step, Zhong Xiaohua suddenly rolled her eyes and shouted, "You guys wait. I still have something to do." When Brother Fan heard that, his face turned pale. He turned his head and smiled. "Young master, what is it?" Zhong Xiaohua laughed and said, "Letting you guys go so easily would be letting you guys off too easily. I can't give you guys a deep lesson. With a heart of compassion, I've decided to teach you guys a lesson." Brother Fan's face became even uglier. He said, "Listen to this young master's instructions. I wonder how you'll teach us." Zhong Xiaohua said, "Since you want to rob me and take my money pouch, I naturally have to pay you back in your own coin. Besides, Sai, your actions have deeply hurt my heart. You have destroyed my beautiful impression of this town. This loss is huge. You have to compensate me for my mental damage." "I've decided." Zhong Xiaohua said, "Since you want to rob me and take my money pouch, I'll pay you back in your own coin." Zhong Xiaohua took a deep breath and said, "I've decided to take your money pouches and let you guys have a taste of being robbed." When everyone heard that, they fainted. "If you want to compensate, just say it. Why do you have so many reasons?" Brother Fan naturally didn't dare to say anything. He hurriedly urged his subordinates to take out their small pouches and hand them to Zhong Xiaohua. Zhong Xiaohua didn't mind and took them one by one and put them in her bosom. Finally, Brother Fan carefully handed over his slightly full pouch. Zhong Xiaohua weighed it up and down and said, "It's not that heavy. It seems your business isn't good." Brother Fan smiled and said, "This young master is joking. It's a small business to begin with. It can only be fun, but not rich. Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "You really don't have anything in your bosom?" Brother Fan smiled and said, "I really don't have anything." Finished speaking, he rubbed his bosom to show that he wasn't lying. However, his hand suddenly stopped moving. He awkwardly took out a palm-sized light green jade pendant and handed it to Zhong Xiaohua. He said, "This, I forgot. I still have this thing in my bosom." Zhong Xiaohua asked curiously, "Where did this come from? How could you forget?" Brother Fan said embarrassedly, "I took this from a rich merchant yesterday. I've already taken it to the town's jade merchant for appraisal. They said it's a worthless fake. Hehe, I just put it in my bosom. If this young master doesn't mind that it's a fake, please kindly accept it." Zhong Xiaohua didn't stand on ceremony and reached out to take it. She said, "I'll take it even if it's a fake. It's just a lesson to you." Thus, under Zhong Xiaohua's awe-inspiring righteousness, she plundered the 6 or 7 people's money pouches before letting them go. Yuan Changqing and the others were dumbfounded by Zhong Xiaohua's actions. They didn't know what to say. Zhong Xiaohua's words were good, and he had his reasons too. "You robbed me, so I had to teach you a lesson. Since you want to save people, then I'm not afraid of using strong medicine. Then, you ruffians, I'm sorry. Hand over your money bags. You can treat your own injuries. I'll teach you a lesson, and I hope you can remember this lesson. I hope you can remember this lesson." Zhong Xiaohua put the money pouches and the fake jade pendant into her bosom. Her heart was full, and her eyes curved into crescents. She smiled and said, "Everyone, why are you standing there in a daze? Where do you live? Do you want to go to the Galloping Carriage Company together?" Yuan Changqing and the others came to their senses and said, "No need, no need. We have our own accommodation. Little brother, come with us." Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "Then I won't stand on ceremony." After saying that, she followed Yuan Changqing and the others and walked away, stepping on the snow. Everyone walked by the roadside, not saying a word, as if they hadn't recovered from the shock just now. Zhong Xiaohua didn't mind and asked as she walked, "Big brother Yuan, after talking for so long, I still haven't asked which part of Pingyang City you are from." Yuan Changqing said, "We are the armed escorts of the Lotus Flower Escort Company in Pingyang City. This year, we went on a long trip and came to this remote town. I reckon we'll be going back in a few days." Lotus Flower Escort Company? Armed escorts? When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she jumped 3 feet high in surprise, almost scaring everyone. After that, Zhong Xiaohua pulled Yuan Changqing's hand and asked, "Then, big brother Yuan, do you know someone called Zhong Xiaohu?" "Zhong Xiaohu?" Yuan Changqing and the others were surprised and said in unison, "Of course, we know him. He's our leader Zhong." Zhong Xiaohua suddenly understood. No wonder they said that their leader Zhong was familiar with the 6 complementary fists. Wasn't that Zhong Xiaohu's signature fist technique? Yuan Changqing asked, "Little brother, do you know our leader Zhong?" Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "I don't just know him. I've known him for 13 years. Yuan Changqing was stunned and said, "What do you mean?" Zhong Xiaohua said, "I'm his biological younger brother. I'm 13 years old this year. Do you think I'm right?" Yuan Changqing suddenly understood. "Oh, I know. I heard that leader Zhong has a very strong younger brother. What's his name again?" Zhong Xiaohua said, "He's called Zhong Xiaohua. You have to remember such a handsome and mighty name." Yuan Changqing smiled and said, "Yes, he's called Zhong Xiaohua. He came to the escort agency with leader Zhong last year to apply for a job. I heard that he even lifted 500 kilograms of stone weights. It's a pity that I wasn't there yet. Otherwise, I would definitely recognize you. Little brother, please don't blame me." Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "No, no. Look, I look quite similar to second brother." Yuan Changqing took a closer look and said, "Yes, there are some similarities. However, you're still small and skinny now. Your face is a little chubby, but your brows are still similar. However, if you look at it directly, you might not be able to recognize him. Since he was Zhong Xiaohu's subordinate, he was naturally not an outsider. Moreover, Zhong Xiaohua had been recuperating at the escort agency for a long time before the new year, so he had long regarded the agency as his home. Therefore, he was very close to Yuan Changqing and the others. The few doubts he had were thrown away. Sure enough, it didn't take long for them to arrive at a slightly remote alley on the east side of the town. After entering the alley, they saw a half-closed courtyard door. Yuan Changqing and the others pushed the door open and shouted, "Leader Zhong, is Leader Zhong here?" Before they could hear Zhong Xiaohu's reply, another loud voice rang out, "Why are you shouting so loudly? If you don't follow the rules, what's the point of your daily training? Your leader Zhong isn't here. He's out on some errands. If you have anything to say, just tell me." Zhong Xiaohua followed Yuan Changqing and the others into the small courtyard. The owner of the loud voice also came out from the central room. He was a bald, brawny man with a fierce face. When Yuan Changqing and the others saw him, they quickly saluted and said, "Escort Leader Luo, you're here." Escort Leader Luo approached them. His nose twitched a few times, and he frowned and said, "You guys went drinking again?" Yuan Changqing smiled and said, "Big Escort Leader, we've been in this godforsaken place for so long with nothing to do. Our brothers were bored, so we went out for a drink." Escort Leader Luo said, "You can drink, but don't cause trouble for me. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson." Then, his gaze fell on Zhong Xiaohua and he said impatiently, "Who is this person? Why did you bring a stranger here? Please add it to your collection, thank you." Chapter 138. Seeing the change in Escort Chief Luo's expression, Yuan Changqing hurriedly explained, "Please don't misunderstand, Escort Chief. This young man is our Chief Zhong's younger brother. His name is Zhong Xiaohua. We happened to meet him in town, so we brought him back to let the two brothers meet. Think about it, even if he isn't Chief Zhong's younger brother, he's still so young. Since he's from Pingyang City, we can't just let him wander around here alone, right?" Escort Chief Luo's expression softened when he heard this. He then asked, "You know him? You know that he's Zhong Xiaohu's younger brother?" Yuan Changqing smiled apologetically. "You must be joking, Escort Chief. How would I know him? But don't you think this young man looks exactly like our Chief Zhong? What's there to be suspicious about?" Escort Chief Luo looked at Zhong Xiaohua suspiciously for a moment, then patted his bald head and said, "You're Zhong Xiaohua, right? I think I've seen you somewhere before." Zhong Xiaohua smiled. "It's like this, Escort Chief Luo. I was injured before the new year and spent some time recuperating in the escort agency. Perhaps we met during that time." Escort Chief Luo thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Perhaps. The escort agency was quite busy before the new year and I often went out on missions, so I didn't spend much time in the agency. Perhaps we met once or twice." Then, Escort Chief Luo said to Yuan Changqing, "Zhong Xiaohu went out to settle some matters and will probably return at night. You can bring this child to his room first." With that, he walked out of the door with his head held high. After Escort Chief Luo had walked far away, Yuan Changqing stopped smiling and said in a low voice, "Ignore him, Zhong Xiaohua. This person always looks down on us escorts just because he's an escort chief. He's always picky about us. Our Chief Zhong, I mean your second brother, has always argued with him over these trivial matters. Otherwise, why would he pick on you?" Zhong Xiaohua didn't mind. She was a stranger who had suddenly barged in. Naturally, they would interrogate her carefully. If she was let off so easily, how could she still be an escort leader? Seeing that Zhong Xiaohua only smiled, Yuan Changqing said, "Let's go. I'll take you to Chief Zhong's room. You must be tired. Take a rest first and wait for your second brother to come back tonight." With that said, the few of them brought Zhong Xiaohua to a simple and crude room. The door was ajar, but when they pushed the door open and entered, the room was not empty. Yuan Changqing smiled and said, "This courtyard was temporarily rented by us when we came over during the new year. It's very simple. We'll probably leave in a while, so we didn't add anything." Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "This house is similar to the one second brother has at the escort agency." Yuan Changqing said, "Chief Zhong's house is still alright since he's living alone. Chief Zhong also likes cleanliness, so of course the house is clean. The few of us are just next door, but together, it's not something that can be described as simply dirty and messy. All right, Zhong Xiaohua, take a rest first. Chief Zhong will be back soon. We'll give him a big surprise. Zhong Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. She said, okay. Then it's a deal. Don't tell him in advance. Yuan Changqing and the others smiled and said, okay, it's a deal. Chief Zhong is very generous to us. I haven't seen him happy for a long time. This must make him very excited. Zhong Xiaohua asked again, but that escort chief Luo knows about it too. He won't tell second brother, right? Yuan Changqing and the others said, haha, don't worry. This escort chief Luo went out at this time. He's probably looking for some fun somewhere. With your second brother around, he can rest assured. He takes care of many things very well. He won't be back until night time. Only then did Zhong Xiaohua feel relieved and repeatedly agreed. Yuan Changqing and the others saw that Zhong Xiaohua looked tired, so they didn't say anything else and left. Zhong Xiaohua had been running from early morning until the afternoon. When she was eating at the restaurant, she was harassed by the local ruffians. Then, she showed off her power and killed all of them. Naturally, she was tired by now. She looked at the wound on her arm. It had stopped bleeding a long time ago and didn't seem to hurt now. She didn't have the mood to care about it. She spread out the quilt on Zhong Xiaohu's kang bed and crawled into it. She quickly fell asleep. Time passed quickly. The winter days were short, and dusk arrived quickly. When the lanterns were lit, Zhong Xiaohu came back from outside. He was exhausted but also a little happy. Even though Zhong Xiaohu was only escort leader Luo's assistant and was only there to help him with his work, this man seemed to think highly of him and pushed all the work to him. Just like today, when he was discussing the return journey en route with the merchants, escort leader Luo even asked Zhong Xiaohu to handle it. Did he really think of Zhong Xiaohu as a permanent worker who didn't need to be paid a monthly salary? However, this was good too. Zhong Xiaohu had learned a lot from this escort mission. Even if he was asked to run an escort alone in the future, there wouldn't be a problem. However, Zhong Xiaohu smiled bitterly and shook his head. He was just an escort, not an escort leader. Why would the agency let him be in charge? Fortunately, he had already agreed on the return journey en route with the customers. Returning to Pingyang City was imminent. At the thought of Pingyang City, Zhong Xiaohu was really eager to return home. He had run 2 long escort trips before the new year and actually didn't stay in Pingyang City for the new year. He wondered how his brother was doing in Huanxi Mountain Village. However, thinking about what Zhong Xiaohua said, there were many people in the mountain village who cared and took care of him. He should be able to have a good new year. There was also Li Jinfeng, young Master Li. He had agreed to let him pass a message to his family and bring some money back when he returned home before the new year. However, he came and went in a hurry and didn't have time to see him. At this moment, he should be at home enjoying the happiness of family. He wondered if he still remembered to make a trip to Guozhuang House. Zhong Xiaohu entered the courtyard. As he greeted the people in the courtyard, he quickly walked back to the house. He pushed open the half-closed door and walked to the small table in the house. He took out a fire starter and lit the oil lamp. He then poured a cup of water and sat on the stool while drinking, heaving a sigh of relief. When he finished drinking the water, he then realized that there was another person lying on his kang bed. Zhong Xiaohu shook his head and thought to himself, which escort agency's brother is this again? After drinking, he entered the wrong house. Hence, Zhong Xiaohu stood up, picked up the oil lamp and walked to the kang bed. That person was lying sideways on the kang bed and was sound asleep. Zhong Xiaohu rolled him over and scolded him with a smile, "Hurry up and get up. It's already dark. Quickly go and eat. If you want to sleep, go back to your room and sleep." However, this person was very small and light. Zhong Xiaohu easily flipped him over. Just as he was feeling surprised, he couldn't help but exclaim when he saw that person's face, "Xiaohua." The oil lamp in his hand almost fell on Zhong Xiaohua's face. Zhong Xiaohu was shocked. He quickly calmed himself down and held the oil lamp tightly to prevent Zhong Xiaohua from being disfigured. He took a closer look and rubbed his eyes. If it wasn't Zhong Xiaohua's small face, Who else could it be? Was he dreaming? Zhong Xiaohu walked to the door and looked at the courtyard. There were a few bodyguards and armed escorts walking around. The snow in the courtyard was still very deep. Wasn't this the courtyard he had just entered? Then, Zhong Xiaohu pinched his cheeks and confidently. The pain proved that he wasn't dreaming. But why did Zhong Xiaohua come to his Kang bed from Pingyang City? With that thought, Zhong Xiaohu walked quickly to the Kang bed. He wanted to wake Zhong Xiaohua up and interrogate her. However, when he saw Zhong Xiaohua sleeping soundly, he immediately retracted his hand. It was better to let Xiaohua have a good sleep. No matter what happened, no matter how serious it was, since she was under his protection, this burden would naturally be shouldered by him, the older brother. His younger brother was still young and must have suffered a lot when he came here. Even if the cause of the matter was complicated, now was not the time to ask. Everything would have to wait until he woke up. Thinking of this, Zhong Xiaohu carefully blew out the oil lamp and put it down. He then tiptoed carefully and walked out softly. He carefully closed the door, afraid that he would make a sound and disturb Zhong Xiaohua's good sleep. Walking to the courtyard, Zhong Xiaohu stopped one of the armed escorts and asked, "Is Escort Chief Luo here?" That person smiled and said, "Chief Zhong, you still don't know when Escort Chief Luo ate here at night? He must be outside at this time." Zhong Xiaohu laughed and scolded, "Of course I know that. I'm asking if you saw him today." That person said, "Not since this afternoon." Zhong Xiaohu probed again, "Then did you see anyone enter my house?" That person thought for a while and said, "I don't remember. Our courtyard is remote and no strangers usually come here. If someone came, I would naturally remember." "Why? Chief Zhong, did you lose something?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, No, I'm just asking." After saying that, he let that person go. Then, he asked a few other armed escorts and they all gave the same answer. Zhong Xiaohu was a little puzzled. Did his younger brother fly here? Moreover, how did he know he was here? Just as he was thinking, he bumped into Yuan Changqing and a few other armed escorts who were on good terms with him coming back from outside. When Yuan Changqing saw Zhong Xiaohu, he smiled and said, "Chief Zhong, did you just come back from outside?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "Yes, I just came back." "Why did you all go out again?" Yuan Changqing said, "It's very boring to stay in the courtyard." "Why don't we go out?" Zhong Xiaohu said, "Instead of going out for a stroll, it's better to practice some punches and kicks." "Why don't you practice some punches to train your body?" Yuan Changqing smiled and said, "Chief Zhong, we can't compare to you. Our punches and kicks are just like that. How can we improve? If I were as lucky as you, I would also practice diligently at the martial arts center to learn the inner strength mantras." Zhong Xiaohu said, "Opportunities are always given to those who are prepared. If you don't put in the effort, you won't be able to seize the opportunity even if you have it." Yuan Changqing said, "All right, Chief Zhong, I know you're good to us. We'll practice our punches well after dinner. It won't be a waste of your saliva." Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "It's your business whether you want to practice or not. You don't have to look at my face." Then, Yuan Changqing asked mysteriously, "Chief Zhong, did you just come back? You haven't gone back to your room yet, right?" Zhong Xiaohu didn't understand and said, "I've been back for a while. I just went back to my room." Immediately, he came to a realization and asked, "You were the one who brought Zhong Xiaohua back?" Yuan Changqing blinked and said with a smile, "It seems that I was the one who did it." Zhong Xiaohu laughed and said, "Good brother, I didn't treat you like this in vain. This time, I have to thank you properly." Yuan Changqing hurriedly declined and said, "Chief Zhong, you're too polite. You're usually very generous to your brothers. Although you're still young, everyone listens to you. We're all happy to do something for you, so you don't have to be so polite. Besides, we just happened to meet at the right time. We really didn't do anything." Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "No matter what, Xiaohua is only a teenager. If you didn't bring him, he wouldn't be able to find this place." "Oh right, how did you meet him? Do you know Xiaohua?" Asking this, Yuan Changqing and the others' expressions were very interesting. He said, "Chief Zhong, like father like son, It should be Brother Dragon and Brother Tiger to you. Zhong Xiaohu stared blankly and scolded with a smile. Nonsense, my big brother is called Little Dragon, and I'm called Little Tiger. Of course I'm Brother Dragon and Brother Tiger. Yuan Changqing saw that he didn't understand and explained with a smile, I'm your little brother. That's what you call amazing. Zhong Xiaohu didn't understand, so Yuan Changqing told him everything he saw and heard in the afternoon. With this, he spoke for a full quarter of an hour. It had to be said that this Yuan Changqing's eloquence was excellent. Not being a storyteller with a bright future was a big loss to the storytelling world. There were a few people nearby who all gave a thumbs up and praised Zhong Xiaohu for having an amazing little brother. Zhong Xiaohu's expression was uncertain as he listened. He was worried about Zhong Xiaohua's arm injury. After waiting for Yuan Changqing to finish, he said, "You guys wait here for a moment. I'll be right back." Under everyone's puzzled gaze, Zhong Xiaohu quickly ran back to his room. However, he came back with a normal expression. Yuan Changqing asked, "Chief Zhong, did you forget something?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "I didn't forget anything. I'm just worried about Xiaohua's injury. If I don't see it with my own eyes, I won't be at ease." Only then did everyone understand. They secretly sighed in their hearts. Others were only concerned about the excitement of the fight. Only his own brother didn't care about the result and only cared about his little brother's injury. Only when he saw that the injury was fine could he be at ease. Yuan Changqing was also ashamed and said, "Chief Zhong, this is my fault. I only cared about bringing Zhong Xiaohua back and forgot about this matter for a moment. I don't know how his arm is now." Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "It's fine. It's just an oversight. I also roughly looked at it just now. I couldn't see clearly under the oil lamp. It seems to have scarred. It should be just a superficial wound. I guess it's because of the blood loss. Xiaohua is so tired. He's usually so lively." Yuan Changqing said fiercely, "It's fine if Xiaohua is fine, but if there's a little problem, we brothers will definitely find justice for him." Zhong Xiaohu also said with a gloomy face, "That's right. My little brother can't be injured for no reason. Although they were spared in the afternoon, since they're injured, it's another matter. I'll go look for them tomorrow and make them bleed a little." Hearing this, Yuan Changqing's expression was strange. Just now, in order to protect Zhong Xiaohua's heroic image, Yuan Changqing used the spring and autumnals technique. Some things were omitted. Since Zhong Xiaohu said this, Yuan Changqing couldn't hide it. So Yuan Changqing looked around and pulled Zhong Xiaohu to the side. Yuan Changqing whispered into his ear. Hearing this, Zhong Xiaohu's face was in high spirits. When Yuan Changqing finished, his mouth almost split open from laughing. He still didn't believe him and asked, "He really did that? You really saw it with your own eyes?" Yuan Changqing smiled and said, "How can I lie to Chief Zhong? Why don't you ask him tomorrow? Or you can go back and take a look later." Zhong Xiaohu laughed and said, "If that's the case, then I won't go look for trouble with them." Ha ha ha. After saying that, he said, "Brothers, in a while, let's go drink. We won't go back until we're drunk." Well, this was good. After hearing that his little brother was fine, he was so happy that he wanted to go drink. However, it couldn't be said that this was a celebration of the brothers' coincidental meeting. Everyone was surprised to see Zhong Xiaohu's angry eyes just now, but now he was beaming with joy. They surrounded Yuan Changqing and the others and asked for the reason. How could they explain it? They just kept evading and told them to go look for Zhong Xiaohu. Zhong Xiaohu also kept them in suspense and refused to say anything. Everyone was depressed. At the dinner table in the evening, when everyone took advantage of Zhong Xiaohu's drunken state to ask again, Zhong Xiaohu finally said it clearly. Hearing this, everyone laughed and gave a thumbs up, saying, "Zhong Xiaohua, you're really funny." Then everyone's faces turned white. Although it was said that they wouldn't go back until they were drunk, how could Zhong Xiaohu drink too much with his slightly injured little brother sleeping on his kang bed? The rest of the people went back full of joy. Only Zhong Xiaohu returned to the small courtyard sober. At night, Zhong Xiaohu slept close to Zhong Xiaohua, far away from him, afraid that he would accidentally wake him up. However, He was also worried that Zhong Xiaohua was a strong sleeper. How could he wake him up so easily? The next day, when Zhong Xiaohua woke up from his flickering dream, the first thing he saw was the second brother he had been thinking about day and night. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Just as he was about to call out, he heard that Zhong Xiaohu was still sound asleep. He quickly covered his mouth with his hand. However, this small action still woke up Zhong Xiaohu, who was thinking about him. Zhong Xiaohu opened his eyes and saw Zhong Xiaohua's happy little face looking at him. He jumped up from the kang bed and said with a smile, "Xiaohua, you're awake." Zhong Xiaohua also smiled and said, "Yes, second brother, I'm awake." Not much was said, but the two were happy. Then, Zhong Xiaohu asked, "You didn't sleep enough. How about you sleep a bit more? It's still early." Zhong Xiaohua said with a smile, "Second brother, as long as I wake up, it'll be hard for me to fall asleep again. Besides, I fell asleep when I came to your room yesterday afternoon. I've slept for so long. Otherwise, I'll be sleepy again." Zhong Xiaohu said, "Okay then, let me take a closer look at the wound on your arm." Zhong Xiaohua stretched out her arm. Zhong Xiaohu used the light coming in from the window to take a closer look. He took a towel and wiped off some of the blood on the outside. The wound was as he thought. It had already scabbed over, as if it had been healed for several days. Zhong Xiaohu was completely relieved. "Please add it to your collection, thank you." Chapter 139. At this time, Zhong Xiaohu frowned and stared at Zhong Xiaohua, asking, "Xiaohua, why didn't you stay in Huanxi Mountain Villa? Why did you come to this small town for no reason? This place is very far from Pingyang City. Did you come alone? Or did you come with someone else? Did you make a mistake in the mountain villa, so you escaped here without permission? If that's the case, Little Blossom, don't be afraid. Tell me what's going on. Don't be afraid. Even if the sky falls, I'm here to hold it up. However, you have to tell me the truth." Zhong Xiaohua heard her second brother asking so many questions, which were getting more and more ridiculous. She quickly waved her hands and said, "Don't, second brother. Even if the sky falls down, there's someone higher than you. You don't have to worry about me. How do you expect me to answer so many questions? You'd better pour me some water first. I'm thirsty. After I drink the water, I'll tell you in detail." Zhong Xiaohu had no choice but to turn around and pour him some water. Seeing him gulp it down, he asked again, "Now you should tell me." In fact, it was not that Zhong Xiaohua was unwilling to tell Zhong Xiaohua that she, Oyu Yang, and others went south. However, he Tianshu's instructions before she went out and the attack on the rainy night made her hesitate. She did not know if she should tell Zhong Xiaohu. Moreover, she was injured by the men in black and almost lost her life. Although she was fine now, if she told her second brother, he would be worried. What should she do? Moreover, Shatai did not seem to want others to know her whereabouts. She did not even tell Zhong Xiaohua about her background. Of course, Zhong Xiaohua had to consider for her. However, Zhong Xiaohua thought again. This Zhong Xiaohu was her biological second brother. If he could not be trusted, who else in the world could be trusted? After thinking for a long time, Zhong Xiaohua said, "Second brother, there are some things that I must keep a secret, so you must keep it a secret. What I told you today, you mustn't tell anyone. Even if Escort Luo asks, you mustn't say a word." Zhong Xiaohu saw Zhong Xiaohua's hesitation and thought that he had done something bad. When he heard this, he could not help but become serious. He nodded and answered, "Okay, Xiaohua, I promise you, I'll only tell one person about this. I will never tell anyone else." Thus, Zhong Xiaohua recounted how she had set off from Pingyang City with the convoy of Huanxi Manor and how she had been attacked in the rainy night. However, she did not mention the fight with the old man in black. She only said that she had accidentally fallen into the water to escape in the dark and had picked up a wooden board in the water. That was how she had drifted down the rapids. Zhong Xiaohu and Zhong Xiaohua had grown up together. He knew Zhong Xiaohua's swimming ability like the back of his hand. She could be a little frog in the small river in front of the Guozhuang house, but she was a far cry from being a loach in this river. Thus, He did not have the slightest doubt that Zhong Xiaohua could not get ashore in time with a wooden board in the rapids. However, when he heard that Zhong Xiaohua had drifted for a long time and was only rescued by someone in a slower stream, he was so scared that his face turned pale. Zhong Xiaohua was puzzled when she saw her second brother's scared look. She asked, "What's wrong, second brother? Am I not fine? What's there to be afraid of?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled stiffly and said, "The ignorant are fearless. Xiaohua, you should know that this place is very close to the sea. The rivers on the left converge to Luojiang, which is not far ahead. I think the river that you drifted over is the same. If you were not rescued at that time, you would have drifted into Luojiang soon. The river is wide and it would be even more difficult to get ashore. Moreover, this is the estuary of Luojiang. If you could not get ashore before entering Luojiang, you would have no chance. Tell me, how can I not be scared?" When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, a trace of cold sweat appeared on his back. In his heart, he secretly thanked Xiao Meng for her fishing rod. If it were not for her fishing rod, he was afraid that he would have been sleeping in the boundless sea by now. Then, Zhong Xiaohua said that she had drifted for a long time and fell ill when she got ashore. It was not until yesterday that the person who saved her brought her out and put her in this strange town. When Zhong Xiaohu heard that his younger brother had almost died, he was already distressed. How could he still distinguish between his words? He only held Zhong Xiaohua's little hand and held it tightly. He only wanted to replace the pain that his poor younger brother had suffered some time ago with himself. When Zhong Xiaohua saw this, she felt that her decision was correct. If Zhong Xiaohu knew that she was almost beaten to death, wouldn't he immediately burst into tears? After a long while, Zhong Xiaohu said, "Since you drifted here by yourself and don't know whether Manor Master Ou is alive or dead, you naturally can't tell anyone about this matter. You can just say that you were sent here by the steward of Huanxi Mountain Villa." However, he immediately smiled and said, "It's also difficult. How can a small child like you be sent so far away? Why don't you say that you came here with someone else and got separated when you reached here? Now that you have coincidentally met us, just follow the escort team back. Everything will naturally be clear when we reach Pingyang City." Zhong Xiaohua blinked and said with a smile, "Then we will do as second brother says. Fortunately, big brother Yuan brought me back yesterday. He saw that I was tired and didn't ask me in detail. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to say." At this point, Zhong Xiaohu seemed to have thought of something and said with a smile, "I heard that someone was very impressive yesterday. She killed everyone and obtained a lot of spoils of war." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she immediately blushed and muttered, "I also didn't want to let them go for nothing." Then, she shook Zhong Xiaohu's arm and said, "Second brother, I won't dare to do it again, okay?" However, Zhong Xiaohu's face turned stiff and he said in a strange tone, "Why not? Not only will I do this in the future, but I will also make them bleed a lot. I can't wait to beat these local ruffians up personally. Why would I blame you?" Zhong Xiaohua looked at Zhong Xiaohu in surprise and stopped shaking his arm. She couldn't believe her ears and asked, "You really agree with what I did yesterday?" Zhong Xiaohu said with a smile, "Yes, second brother agrees wholeheartedly." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she giggled and said, "That's my good second brother. That's right, I haven't taken a look at yesterday's loot. It's a good time to take an inventory." When she finished speaking, she took out a pile of money bags of different sizes. She casually took a bulging bag and opened it to take a look. Zhong Xiaohu also took one and opened it. Zhong Xiaohua's money bag had some scattered silver and some copper coins. While he was counting, he heard Zhong Xiaohu shout, "Oh, there's a lot of things in this money bag. There's even a pearl hair clip. Yi, why is there a small stone?" Zhong Xiaohua looked up and saw that her second brother was holding the money bag she picked up and looking at it with great interest. Zhong Xiaohua snatched it and said, "This isn't yesterday's loot. I picked it up on the mountain a few days ago." Zhong Xiaohu was surprised, but he didn't doubt her and said with a smile, "Xiaohua, your fortune has come. How can you casually pick up a money bag? There's a lot of silver inside." Zhong Xiaohua was too lazy to explain to him. She took a money bag from the table and threw it to him, saying, "Hurry up and take a look." Zhong Xiaohu caught it and said, "It's too slow to look at it like this. It's better to pour it all on the table." Zhong Xiaohua said with a smile, "Second brother, that's a good idea." Thus, the two of them picked up the money bags and poured out the contents one by one. Although there were 7 or 8 money bags on the table, there were very few things inside. Apart from one of the money bags, which should be brother fans, which had a bit more silver, the others were mostly copper coins. Zhong Xiaohua looked and thought, the money bags are so empty. No wonder they want to steal from me. However, many grains of sand make a tower, and many armpits make a fur coat. Although each pouch did not have much silver, there were 7 or 8 of them. Upon closer inspection, other than the dozens of copper coins, there were also about 5 taels of silver scattered around. Zhong Xiaohu was extremely happy to see this. After tidying up, Zhong Xiaohu pushed the silver and copper coins to Zhong Xiaohua and said, "This is your harvest. Keep it for yourself." Zhong Xiaohua smiled and kept the copper coins. She pushed the rest to second brother and said, "Second brother, I'll keep the copper coins as pocket money. Help me keep the silver for now. When you have time, you can bring it back to father and mother." When Zhong Xiaohu heard this, he didn't refuse. He found a nice-looking one from the empty money bags and put the money in his chest, saying, "All right, it would be impolite for me to refuse. Today, I finally have my own money bag. He, it's not worse than the one you picked up from the mountain." Zhong Xiaohua didn't say anything. He took out the jade tablet from his chest and said, "This is also for you. Yesterday, that person said it was a fake. When you have time, find a pawn shop and sell it for some money." Zhong Xiaohu received it with his hands, looked around, and then returned it to him, saying, "Forget it, this silver is not a small amount. This is a fake after all, it's not worth much, just take it and play with it." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, he kept it in his chest. Then, he took out the small sword from his chest and passed it to Zhong Xiaohu. Zhong Xiaohu saw Zhong Xiaohua taking out things from his chest and couldn't help but laugh. "Is that 100 treasures pouch in your chest? Why do you always have good things to take out?" Zhong Xiaohua smiled and then told Zhong Xiaohu about the incident with He Tianshu at the small town's weapon shop. When Zhong Xiaohu heard this, he was secretly amused. In the past, before he was sent out in Pingyang City, he thought that the price of weapons was the same everywhere. After coming out a few times, he realized that the price of each weapon was different in every place. These 7 taels of silver were probably not much in He Tianshu's eyes, but in the eyes of the blacksmith, it was a huge sum. It was no wonder that the blacksmith would buy one and get one free. Zhong Xiaohu saw that his younger brother liked this small sword very much and took it to take a look. After looking at it from left to right, other than it being very heavy, he couldn't see anything special about it. It also didn't have the feeling of being connected by blood, as Zhong Xiaohua said. He smiled and said, "Looks like you hit it off with this small sword. I can't see anything strange about it. However, since it was given for 7 taels of silver, it must be something good." Although Zhong Xiaohu said this, he didn't think much of it in his heart. He felt that his younger brother had only found one because he didn't have many toys since he was young and couldn't bear to part with it. Zhong Xiaohua saw that her second brother didn't think much of it and lost interest. Naturally, he couldn't tell him that he had used this small sword to kill people, so he could only keep it close to his chest. At this time, the sky was already bright. Zhong Xiaohu said, "Let's go, Xiaohua. Let's go eat first. I still have work to do later. You can play in this courtyard. The time of our return is more or less set. Just come back with us. Don't worry about anything else. Just have fun." Zhong Xiaohua pursed her lips and thought to herself, "You're still treating me like a child." Zhong Xiaohu led Zhong Xiaohua out the door and bumped into Escort Luo. Escort Luo looked sleepy, as if he had a hangover. He didn't look embarrassed when he saw Zhong Xiaohu. Instead, he yawned and asked, "Zhong Xiaohu, how did the discussion go yesterday?" Zhong Xiaohu replied respectfully, reporting to Escort Luo, "Everything has been discussed. After breakfast, I'll report to you for your decision." Escort Luo nodded and said, Good job. Go eat first and come find me later. By the way, is this little brother really your younger brother?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "Yes, he is my younger brother, Zhong Xiaohua. It's quite a coincidence to meet him here. I'll tell you the details later." Escort Luo waved his hand and gestured for Zhong Xiaohu and his brother to go eat. He covered his mouth and yawned before going somewhere else. Zhong Xiaohua carefully pulled on Zhong Xiaohu and asked, "Second brother, this Escort Luo doesn't look like an escort leader. Are all the escort leaders of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency like this?" Zhong Xiaohu looked around and said carefully, "Xiaohua, you can't say that. Don't talk about others so casually. Be careful of the trouble that comes from the mouth. The other escort leaders don't look like this either. I guess it's because Escort Luo has been away for a long time and is homesick." After that, Zhong Xiaohua followed Zhong Xiaohu to the courtyard's kitchen for breakfast. At this time, there were many escorts and armed escorts in the kitchen. Many of them already knew that Escort Luo had met his younger brother here. Moreover, Zhong Xiaohua's performance on the streets yesterday had been spread by Yuan Chongqing's big mouth. Hence, everyone had a good impression of this inconspicuous young man. No matter what, he was still a brother from Pingyang City. How could he beat up a local bully so badly? Just thinking about it made them feel relieved, as if they were the ones who did it. Zhong Xiaohua had not seen his family for a long time. Now that he saw so many people from Pingyang City, he felt very close to them and spoke to them obediently. Before the meal was over, everyone already found Zhong Xiaohua pleasing to the eye, as if he was their brother. Zhong Xiaohu had a lot of work to do in the team and did not have much free time to take care of Zhong Xiaohua. He was worried that Zhong Xiaohua would not be able to adapt here. Now that he saw that everyone liked Zhong Xiaohua, he was relieved. After hurriedly finishing his meal, he gave Zhong Xiaohua some instructions and hurried to Escort Luo's room. Escort Luo's room was obviously bigger than Zhong Xiaohu's. It was a two-room room with a central room. At this moment, Escort Luo was sitting in the central room with a bowl of porridge in front of him. He was rubbing his temples hard. Obviously, his hangover had affected his appetite and caused his head to hurt. When he saw Zhong Xiaohu enter the room, Escort Luo pointed to the stool beside him and said, "Sit." Then, he picked up the bowl of porridge and drank 2 mouthfuls before asking someone to bring it out. Escort Luo drank 2 more mouthfuls of tea before turning to look at Zhong Xiaohu and asked, "Deputy Escort Luo, tell me about yesterday's incident." Zhong Xiaohu hurriedly got up and said, "Escort Luo, you don't have to be so polite. Although Fourth Master Wen thought highly of me and made me your deputy, I am still an executioner. You don't have to address me as such. Just call me Zhong Xiaohu." Escort Luo smiled and said, "Deputy Escort Luo may be an executioner in the escort agency now, but you have already entered the martial arts hall to learn advanced martial arts. Won't it be a piece of cake for you to become an escort in the future? I am only addressing you as such in advance. Don't you think so?" Zhong Xiaohu still refused. "As long as I am not an escort, you can't address me as such. Don't you think so?" Escort Luo smiled disapprovingly. Zhong Xiaohu saw that Escort Chief Luo did not speak and knew that he was jealous of him for being able to study in the martial arts hall. Moreover, this position of deputy team leader was fought for by Fourth Master Wen. Perhaps he did not have the intention to call this Escort Chief Luo. Therefore, he did not argue and said pleasantly, "This is what I discussed with the merchants yesterday." Then, Zhong Xiaohu recounted what he had discussed with the merchants yesterday to Escort Luo in detail. Escort Luo nodded as he listened. When Zhong Xiaohu finished his report, he said, "You have done well. Deputy Escort Luo, everything will be as you have discussed. In a while, go and give them a definite letter. It is settled." Zhong Xiaohu nodded and said, "Then, Escort Luo, I will be going out now. Tell the brothers to pack up in advance and prepare to depart in a few days." Escort Luo nodded and said, "All right. It is time to let them know. They have been here for so long that the new year has already passed." Zhong Xiaohu bowed and turned to leave. At this moment, Escort Luo spoke again and said, "Deputy Escort Zhong, please wait a moment." Zhong Xiaohu quickly stopped in his tracks and turned around to ask, "Is there anything else, Escort Luo?" Escort Leader Luo smiled and said, "It's like this, Deputy Escort Leader Zhong. As leaders, we should lead by example. We should set a good example in everything we do. Zhong Xiaohu was stunned and said, "Escort Luo, if I have done anything wrong, please remind me. I have only been in the escort agency for a short time and there are many things that I still need to learn from experienced escorts like you." Escort Luo was very satisfied when he heard this and smiled. "Actually, it is not a big deal. The agency has its own costs for us bodyguards when we go out. There is a standard for everyone's daily meals and toiletries. You know this standard as well. The team's finances will also be recorded accurately. If there is a discrepancy, I will not be able to explain it to the agency, will I? Look at how your younger brother suddenly joined our team. It won't be easy to calculate his food and lodging expenses." Zhong Xiaohu's expression changed drastically when he heard this. "Please add it to your collection, thank you." Chapter 140. Zhong Xiaohu pondered for a moment before his expression returned to normal. He smiled and said, "No problem, escort leader Luo. I'm still inexperienced and didn't notice this. I didn't expect my brother to bring us so much trouble. How about this, Xiaohua will stay with me. I'll inform the accompanying gentleman about the other matters immediately and get him to record it properly. I'll settle the score with the escort agency when we get back." Escort leader Luo smiled and said, "That's good. Deputy escort leader Zhong, don't take it to heart. As leaders, we have to pay attention to these details at all times. Otherwise, it won't be a good thing if others point fingers at us or report us to the agency. I'm only doing this for the sake of the matter, not the person. Please don't take it to heart." Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "You're doing this for my own good. Why would I blame you? If such a situation happens in the future, please remind me as soon as possible, escort leader Luo." "All right, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Escort leader Luo smiled and waved his hand. "That's all. I'm not worried about you. You've worked hard along the way. I'll definitely ask Fourth Master when for a reward when we get back." Zhong Xiaohu hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "Escort leader Luo, you've worked hard. I'm just helping you on the side." With that, Zhong Xiaohu walked out of the central room with vigor. Escort leader Luo looked at Zhong Xiaohu's back view with a disdainful smile. Zhong Xiaohu walked to the courtyard and gathered everyone to inform them of their return to Pingyang City. Everyone was overjoyed and cheered when they heard this. They were about to disperse. Zhong Xiaohu waited for the crowd's cheers to die down before calling out to the gentleman who was accompanying the team. In front of everyone, he told him to record in detail the food and lodging of his younger brother, Zhong Xiaohua, from today onwards until he returned to the Lotus Escort Agency in Pingyang City. The gentleman was stunned and asked, "What's this for, escort leader Zhong?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "My younger brother's unexpected addition to our team will definitely increase the pressure on our costs. His food, drinks, and lodging will all take up our brother's money. It's best if you record it properly and settle it when I arrive at the escort agency." The man was puzzled and said, "He's just a child. What kind of expenses can he have? I think we should just forget about it." The people around them were also very puzzled. Yuan Changqing even shouted loudly, "Don't do that, Chief Zhong. Zhong Xiaohua is not only your brother, but also our brother now. It's nothing for him to eat and drink here. Why was it so clear? It makes us brothers seem estranged." When Zhong Xiaohu heard this, he smiled at everyone and didn't say much. He just asked the teacher to record it properly. The courtyard wasn't big, and Zhong Xiaohua was in the small room, so she could hear everything clearly. When Zhong Xiaohu entered the room, she quickly pulled him back and asked nervously, "Second brother, what's going on? Did I cause trouble for you by coming here?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and pinched her little face, saying, "It's nothing. Isn't it just giving them some food expenses? Not to mention that the money you got yesterday is more than enough. Don't tell me that your Huanxi manor doesn't have any allowance for traveling. Just give it to them. Why let others talk about it?" Zhong Xiaohua suddenly understood and said, "It can't be that escort leader Luo who said it, right? Why is he so serious?" Zhong Xiaohu patted his little head and said lovingly, "You're still young. You'll know when you're a little older. Zhong Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully. This guy's brain was very bright now. Although Zhong Xiaohu didn't want to say much, since he had already pointed it out, how could he not understand it? Unfortunately, she didn't really come here to do business. She wondered if Huanxi Manor would give her some allowance. If not, she would have to take a portion of her earnings from yesterday and give it to the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. She immediately hated that escort leader Luo. Zhong Xiaohua wasn't the only one cursing escort leader Luo. Everyone in the courtyard was very surprised when they heard Zhong Xiaohu's words. Seeing that Zhong Xiaohu didn't explain, they secretly pulled aside a teacher who was accompanying the team to ask for details. That teacher also didn't quite understand, but after some deliberation, everyone understood the whole story. They all secretly cursed escort leader Luo for being narrow-minded. At the same time, even more people gave Zhong Xiaohu a thumbs up. The two leaders' positions in everyone's hearts were immediately determined. The next few days were very ordinary. Zhong Xiaohua stayed in this small courtyard and didn't take a step out. What a joke. She had to fork out her own money, so why would she go out and waste it? Actually, the main reason was that Zhong Xiaohua had been alone for this period of time. Now that she had finally found an organization, she really didn't want to go out again. Moreover, where could she go in this world of ice and snow? Trekking in the snow and looking for plum blossoms in the wilderness? Please, Zhong Xiaohua had just come out from that place, so how could she be interested in it? Moreover, Zhong Xiaohua had just taught the local ruffians a lesson. To be honest, Zhong Xiaohu was really afraid that they would gather people to take revenge. That was why he repeatedly reminded them not to let Zhong Xiaohua out of the small courtyard. Zhong Xiaohua also liked this kind of life. When she had nothing to do in the morning, noon, and night, she would practice her fist technique in the courtyard. In any case, there were many escorts and escorts in the courtyard practicing their fist techniques. Zhong Xiaohua didn't attract any attention, but she couldn't practice Elder Yu's sword moves. Thus, Zhong Xiaohua's hands were itchy, so she could only practice a little in the house. What made Zhong Xiaohua the happiest was that she actually found a few travel books from the teacher who accompanied the group. They talked about the local customs and customs of various places. When Zhong Xiaohua saw them, it was as if she had found a treasure. She wanted to borrow them and read them carefully. The teacher hadn't read them himself, so he didn't want to borrow them. However, when he saw the longing in Zhong Xiaohua's eyes, his heart softened. He only kept one book and lent the rest to Zhong Xiaohua. Thus, Zhong Xiaohua went back to her leisurely life of reading and writing when she was busy, and practicing martial arts when she was free. In contrast to Zhong Xiaohua's leisurely life, Zhong Xiaohu was so busy that his feet didn't touch the ground. He was in charge of all the affairs of the escort group, while escort leader Luo was purely a shopkeeper who didn't do anything. Naturally, he had to deal with a lot of matters such as the departure of the escort group and the negotiations with the merchants. Unfortunately, Zhong Xiaohu wasn't in the courtyard every day, so naturally, he couldn't even see Zhong Xiaohua's face. However, what made Zhong Xiaohua envious was that Zhong Xiaohu's method of practicing martial arts was different from his. Every night, when he returned home, Zhong Xiaohu would sit cross-legged and meditate. Occasionally, he would also practice the Liuhe Quan. When Zhong Xiaohu was practicing his internal energy, Zhong Xiaohua didn't dare to move at all, afraid that she would disturb her second brother. Most of the time, Zhong Xiaohu would wait for Zhong Xiaohua to fall asleep before he started practicing his internal energy. After a few busy days, everyone in the escort group packed their things and settled all the matters with the merchants. On this day, everyone, who was eager to return home, finally set off. It was a sunny day with the sun hanging high in the sky. Although the snow hadn't melted yet, there wasn't much of a chill when the northern wind blew. It was a good day for traveling. At the entrance of the small courtyard, the escort group's things were packed to the brim with 4 large carriages. There were also many horses tied to the trees by the side. Zhong Xiaohua placed his second brother's things on one of the carriages and looked at the escort and guards standing beside the horses with admiration. He had never ridden a horse in his entire life. Not long after, horses galloped in from outside the alley. It was the convoy of merchants that Zhong Xiaohu and the others had picked up. The merchants had more carriages, and there were about 10 to 20 of them, including the escort group. Thus, the two groups merged into one and set off with just a few instructions. Zhong Xiaohua didn't feel that there were too many people, as they usually ate, drank, and fooled around in the courtyard. It was only when they set off that she realized there were more than 10 people in the escort group. At the front were some of Zhong Xiaohu's guards who were scouting ahead. Most of the people in the middle were escort leader Luo and his group of escorts who were protecting the merchants, their carriages, and their goods. The carriages in the middle had a large triangular flag embroidered with the word Lotus. At the back were Zhong Xiaohu and the rest of the guards. Other than the accountant and a few odd job workers, the rest were riding tall horses with weapons hanging from their waists. It was a very impressive sight. Although there were many people and carriages in the escort group, they were all well trained and didn't panic at all. Not long after, they had left the small town and were on the official road. Zhong Xiaohua initially thought that it would be very inconvenient to move with so many people and carriages. However, reality proved that the speed of this convoy wasn't much slower than Ouyang Yang's 4 carriages. Although Zhong Xiaohua desperately wanted to ride a horse by herself, she was still arranged to sit in a carriage together with the accountant and the rest. At the beginning, Zhong Xiaohu didn't have much time to care about her and only entrusted her to Yuan Changqing and the rest. He looked after Zhong Xiaohua until they reached the main road and the convoy moved steadily. Then, he took the time to come to the front of the carriage. Seeing Zhong Xiaohua's unhappy face, he asked, "Xiaohua, we are already on the road and preparing to return to Pingyang City. Why are you unhappy again?" Zhong Xiaohua pouted and said, "Of course I'm happy to be able to return to Pingyang City. However, I can't always sit in a carriage. I want to ride a horse too. I see that there are still some unridden horses at the back. Can I ride them?" Haha. When Zhong Xiaohu heard this, he laughed and said, "So that's how it is. Little flower, it's not that I don't want you to ride. Riding a horse is also a skill. If you have never ridden before, you have to learn how to ride first. Our escort agency's horses are used to running outside and have very fierce temperaments. They're not suitable for you to ride and learn from. When we return to the agency, we'll find a docile horse for you to learn from first." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she realized that she had to learn how to ride a horse. It wasn't something that anyone could ride. However, he still didn't give up and said, "Don't the horses at the back look very docile? Let me try to ride them." When Zhong Xiaohu heard this, he said with a straight face, "Xiaohua, don't be willful. This is an escort agency. How can I let you fool around? The horses at the back look very docile, but it's different when you ride them. Moreover, the horses at the back are spares. If there's a problem with the horses at the front, they'll have to be used. We can't ride blindly now." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she rolled her eyes helplessly and didn't say anything else. Actually, this person was also strange. Take Zhong Xiaohua for example. When he was alone, he did things and thought like an adult. He was even more meticulous and mature. However, when he had relatives or elders by his side, he regained the innocence of a child and truly looked like a teenager. Perhaps this was the habit and dependence of humans. Since she couldn't ride a horse, Zhong Xiaohua didn't continue to pester her and obediently looked at the scenery. The scenery here seemed to be different from the front. Although the snow hadn't melted in the winter, there were some green plants stubbornly surviving in the fields and on the roadside. Occasionally, there were small rivers and streams that were no longer frozen. There were playful children with puppies and playing in the snow. There were strings of plum blossoms on the white fields. The speed of the carriage was very fast. The whistling cold wind poured into the carriage. Zhong Xiaohua habitually covered her cotton-padded clothes. This cotton-padded clothes belonged to her second brother, Zhong Xiaohu. His jacket had already been washed and put away by Zhong Xiaohu. It was difficult to change. Zhong Xiaohu was so sad that he wanted to cry. His younger brother hadn't gotten new clothes to wear during the new year. Even the autumn jacket had been cut open with a knife. He hated that time was too short. The cotton-padded clothes shop was also closed. He could only wear his own cotton-padded clothes first. Zhong Xiaohua repeatedly claimed that she wasn't cold, but how could Zhong Xiaohu believe her? He just kept forcing her to wear it. Look, the clothes were so big that even the wind could get in. When the accountant saw this, he also shrank his neck and asked, Xiaohua, are you cold? Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, No, Mr. Mo. I'm not cold at all. Mr. Mo smiled and said, You're a sensible child. It's okay. If you're cold, I have a shawl here. Of course, it's also very big. But it can still block the wind. Zhong Xiaohua was speechless. She smiled and said, It's okay. Although it's a little cold, I can still stand it. How can young people grow fast if they don't feel cold? Sometimes, it was strange. Zhong Xiaohua was obviously not cold, but when he said that he wasn't cold, others would think that he said that because he didn't have suitable clothes. They would think that he was very sensible and should be concerned about him. Therefore, Zhong Xiaohua became more careful. I won't tell the truth, okay? I'll say half-truths. Zhong Xiaohua looked at the scenery for a while and was a little bored. She asked, Mr. Mo, I would like to ask you a question. Mr. Mo said, Okay, what problem have you encountered? Zhong Xiaohua asked curiously, Mr. Mo, I feel that the weather here and the scenery outside are quite different from Pingyang City. I feel that at this time, Pingyang City should be frozen 3 feet deep. The wind is biting cold and the snow is very thick. Moreover, all the leaves have fallen. It's not like here. Although there's a lot of snow, it feels very cold. The wind is gentle. Look over there are some green things that are still growing. Mr. Mo smiled and said, You're right, Zhong Xiaohua. The weather here is indeed different from Pingyang City. The weather here is very mild and the surroundings are very humid. It doesn't feel as cold as Pingyang City. Zhong Xiaohua asked, Why is that? Mr. Mo said, It's very simple. It's because this place is southeast of Pingyang City. It's next to the sea. Sea. Ayo. When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she couldn't help but shout. She said, I forgot that I haven't seen the sea when I came here. Zhong Xiaohua patted the back of her head regretfully. Why didn't she think of looking at the sea when she was bored a few days before she left? According to the books, the sea was boundless and the sky and the sea was the same color. The scenery was very magnificent. She had yearned for it back then. Now that she was here, why did she lose the opportunity for nothing? Looking at Zhong Xiaohua's frustrated look, Mr. Mo smiled and said, It's okay. You can't see it this time, but you can see it next time. This town is just a small bay near the sea. You can't see too far. You still can't appreciate the magnificence of the sea. If you have the chance, you can take a boat out to sea. That will be more satisfying. Zhong Xiaohua smiled bitterly. She could only accept this. Then, she asked again, Then tell me quickly. How is the weather related to the sea? Mr. Mo said, This town is near the sea, so the climate is naturally very humid. The water in the sea will not freeze, so it can affect the surrounding climate. Moreover, this town is closer to the south than Pingyang City, so you will feel that it is much warmer than Pingyang City. When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she nodded as if she understood. Then, as if she thought of something, she asked, Then Mr. Mo, if we go all the way south, will it be warmer? Mr. Mo smiled and said, Yes. It is said that the southernmost part is also the sea. It is hot all year round and there is no snowflake. Ah, I see. Zhong Xiaohua exclaimed and said, If that's the case, then the children there can't build snowmen and have snowball fights. How pitiful. Mr. Mo said, That's true. However, they also have their own interests, which you don't have. Moreover, if we go further north, the northernmost part is also said to be the sea. It is frozen all year round and there are ice blocks taller than mountains. The people there live in houses made of ice. Ah, that's strange. Zhong Xiaohua was shocked again and said, If it is frozen all year round, then they won't even have the fun of bathing in the stream. How pitiful. Chapter 141. The escort team continued on their journey and only slowed down slightly when night fell. They arrived at a village in the countryside to lodge for the night. How could there be an inn in the village? Only the members of the escort team pitched their own tents and set up a camp. Zhong Xiaohua pulled Zhong Xiaohu aside in private and whispered a lot to him. Zhong Xiaohu smiled and patted his head, saying, "It should be fine here. Look, we've set up camp at the entrance of the village. It's densely populated here, so even if someone harbored evil intentions, they would have their reservations. Besides, it's only our first day out, so of course we'll be vigilant and be careful. If I were to rob someone, I would definitely choose a deserted area in the next few days." Zhong Xiaohu paused for a moment before continuing. "Also, this route has been taken by the people of the escort agency in the past. The campsites along the way have all been used in the past. Don't be fooled by how fast the convoy is moving today. In fact, we've been controlling our speed. If there are no other accidents, the entire situation will be under our control. Moreover, don't be fooled by escort leader Luo's laziness. He's actually an expert in the escort agency. He's extremely experienced." Seeing Zhong Xiaohua's indignant expression, he said, "All right, just wait and see if you don't believe me. It's a good opportunity for you to learn more. When you grow up, you can also become an escort leader in the agency." "Oh, right, we've been busy these few days. How's your wound?" Zhong Xiaohua rolled up her sleeves. Her wound was almost healed. Zhong Xiaohu was relieved and said, "It's good to be a child. If it's an adult, you'll have to rest for a few more days." Then, he thought of something and asked, "Also, Xiaohua, your right hand." Zhong Xiaohua knew that her second brother was thinking about her injury. She smiled and said, "It's almost healed. I feel that the fingers on my right hand are more nimble now and I can use some strength. It seems like I'm just short of being able to clench my fist completely." After he finished speaking, he raised his right hand and reluctantly made a fist in front of Zhong Xiaohu. When Zhong Xiaohu saw this, he repeatedly said, "Good, good." His eyes were wet. Thinking about it, it made sense. She brought her younger brother out to mingle, and because of her, her younger brother's right hand was crippled. No matter how she looked at it, her younger brother's right hand was obviously getting better, and it seemed that it would soon recover to its original state. How could she still be as calm as water? Surging emotions was the right way to go. At the same time, he also had a trace of worry in his heart. The doctor who looked at Zhong Xiaohua's hand was a veteran doctor of the Lotus Escort Agency. He had been in the agency for several decades and had treated countless injuries, bones, pulses, and internal and external injuries. His eyesight was extremely accurate. He had said before that Zhong Xiaohua's hand would never recover. Naturally, this was the accumulation of several decades of experience, so it couldn't be wrong. He didn't know if his younger brother's recovery had exceeded his expectations, or if Zhong Xiaohua's hand had already recovered to the point where it couldn't be recovered anymore. However, Zhong Xiaohu immediately calmed down. No matter how the doctor looked at it, Zhong Xiaohua had already recovered to such an extent that it had greatly exceeded his expectations. Whether or not he could practice the fist technique was another matter. At least in the future, he wouldn't have any problems. Finally, Zhong Xiaohu's heart relaxed a little. After exhorting Zhong Xiaohua a few more words, Zhong Xiaohu went to busy himself with his own matters. The escort team set up camp in an extremely methodical manner. It didn't take long for them to get up. Zhong Xiaohua didn't help at all. After asking about Zhong Xiaohu's tent, Zhong Xiaohua took some things from the carriage and put them all into the tent. Not long after, Yuan Changqing came to call Zhong Xiaohua. Ever since he found out that Zhong Xiaohua's food allowance was going to be deducted, Yuan Changqing took even more care of Zhong Xiaohua. Whenever there was something to eat or drink, Zhong Xiaohua would look for him. Naturally, Zhong Xiaohua didn't stand on ceremony and followed Yuan Changqing to eat and drink. That night, Zhong Xiaohua slept very soundly. When the sun rose and he opened his eyes, the first thing he said was, "Second brother, was there a robbery last night?" Zhong Xiaohu didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard that. He knocked him on the head and scolded jokingly, "Are you still sleeping?" After breakfast, the escort team set up camp and continued on their journey. More than 10 days had passed, but there were no signs of robbery. They didn't even have the chance to camp out in the open. Zhong Xiaohua became increasingly suspicious. If Ouyang Yang hadn't taken the shortcut that day, would others have had the opportunity to sneak up on their campsite? The further north they went, the colder the weather became. The cold wind on the road also became stronger. The huge triangular flag embroidered with the word lotus crackled in the wind. On this day, they happened to be traveling on one of the few mountain roads. The escort team had already slowed down and was advancing slowly. Zhong Xiaohu also stayed behind and followed Zhong Xiaohua's carriage slowly. Zhong Xiaohua looked at the snow-covered shrubs on both sides of the road in boredom. She thought to herself, isn't this the perfect environment for a robbery? Will the mountain bandits appear? Just as she was thinking, she heard a hurried sound of a gong. A loud voice shouted in front of them, I planted this tree and opened this mountain. If you want to pass through here, you have to pay the toll. Zhong Xiaohua's eyes lit up and she shouted, someone is robbing us? Zhong Xiaohu glared at Zhong Xiaohua helplessly and said, why are you so happy when you hear that someone is going to rob us? Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, we met some mountain bandits last time. There were more than 10 of them and they played with us in a best of 3. It was quite fun. Besides, don't we have dozens of people in our escort team? Why would we be afraid of them? Wouldn't we be able to defeat them in a few moves? Gosh tilde Zhong Xiaohu thought to himself, so Xiaohua wants to watch the show. Zhong Xiaohu rebuked, last time, you encountered a dozen or so bandits. You can't say that there are only a dozen bandits. Although our escort team has a lot of people, if there are hundreds of bandits, how can we deal with them? Didn't you and I end up as captives? I see. Zhong Xiaohua exclaimed, then what should we do? Who knows how many bandits there are? Are there any strong ones that even second brother can't defeat? At this moment, Zhong Xiaohu comforted him, Xiaohua, sit in the car. I'll take a look in front. I think escort leader Luo has already gone over. Zhong Xiaohua was not obedient and begged, second brother, take me with you. I want to see the mountain bandits that only appear once in 100 years. Is that okay? She was actually acting coquettishly as she spoke. Zhong Xiaohu looked at this younger brother that he doted on. He thought for a moment and said, all right, come and sit behind me. But remember, when we get there, don't say a word. Zhong Xiaohua immediately jumped down from the car and ran in front of Zhong Xiaohu's horse. Zhong Xiaohu bent down and reached out to grab his hand. With a tug, he pulled him up and made him sit behind him. Then, he whipped his horse and slowly walked to the front of the convoy. The convoy of 20 carriages was quite long. The escorts and guards of the escort agency were all armed and protected the convoy tightly. No one was like Zhong Xiaohua who went to the front to watch the show. Zhong Xiaohu whipped his horse and walked to the front of the convoy. He was not in a hurry to go forward. There was an empty space in front of the convoy and a few escorts had already rushed over. Escort leader Luo, who usually looked lazy, was riding at the front of the convoy. He kicked a long spear in his hand and looked calmly ahead. Zhong Xiaohua secretly poked her head out from under second brother's armpit and carefully looked forward. When she saw the situation clearly, she couldn't help but gasp. Unlike the last time, there were more than 10 people and a few horses. In front of the convoy, there were over a dozen burly men holding various weapons sitting on tall horses. They looked at them coldly, and behind the horses, there were over a dozen burly men who were also holding weapons. They all stood calmly, as if they were in a neat formation. They did not have the laziness of the bandits that he saw last time. Moreover, what made Zhong Xiaohua the most nervous was that there seemed to be many people hidden in the trees on both sides. They seemed to be surrounding the entire convoy. Zhong Xiaohua asked softly, second brother, what should we do? There are so many people, I don't think we can fight them. Should we start fighting? You have to be careful, why aren't you holding a weapon? At this moment, Zhong Xiaohu seemed to be unusually quiet. He said softly, Xiaohua, don't say anything. Just watch quietly. Zhong Xiaohua immediately shut her mouth when she heard this. Indeed, at this moment, escort leader Luo, who was standing in front of the convoy, moved. He shook the reins and let the horse slowly move forward until it reached the center of the empty space. Then, he cupped his fists and said, "May I know who are the people in front of us? Please come forward and speak." Hearing this, a red-faced, square-faced man among the mountain bandits on the opposite side also urged his horse to move forward. The two horses only stopped when they were close enough. That person also cupped his fists and returned the greeting. "I am young Shuro, the big boss of Withered Grass Mountain. May I know how to address you?" Escort leader Luo said, "I am Luo Rueha, the escort leader of Lotus Escort Agency in Pingyang City. My bodyguard is just passing by, please be magnanimous." The leader of the mountain frowned and said loudly, "Oh, so it's a friend from Misty School from afar. Please hold the flag and take a look." When escort leader Luo heard that he had met the person in question, he was happy to follow the rules of the underworld. He said, "Chief Yang, please wait a moment." Then, he turned his horse back and walked to the front of the convoy. He shouted, "Please hold the flag." Thus, the two escorts beside the first carriage dismounted from their horses and came to the front of the carriage. They respectfully took down the escort flag from the carriage and walked to escort leader Luo's horse to hand the flag to him. Escort leader Luo held the flagpole with both hands and waved it in the air. Then, he turned his horse and returned to the empty space in the center of the convoy. Chief Yang, who had been waiting for escort leader Luo, examined the escort flag carefully and nodded. Then, he cupped his fists at the escort flag and said with a smile, "You are indeed a friend from Misty School. This Yang has neglected you. If you have time, please come to the stronghold for a chat." Escort leader Luo smiled and said, Of course. I came and went in a hurry today and didn't have time. If I pass by next time, I will definitely pay you a visit." Chief Yang said, "Then please have a safe journey, escort leader Luo. This is the token of our stronghold. You may travel for 500 miles. Then, he shook his hand and threw a small token over. Escort leader Luo smiled and said, "Thank you very much. There is a small token of our appreciation on the back. Please accept it, Chief Yang." Chief Yang nodded and said, "Thank you, escort leader Luo. This one will not see you off. Have a safe journey." Then, he cupped his fists again and returned to his camp. He said a few words to the people behind him and the dozen or so horses followed him back into the forest. Escort leader Luo also turned his horse back when he saw the bandits leave. He gave a few instructions to the escorts behind him and then gestured for the convoy to continue moving. Zhong Xiaohu saw the convoy move and brought Zhong Xiaohua back to the back of the carriage. However, Zhong Xiaohua refused to get down and clung to second brother's horse. Zhong Xiaohu said helplessly, "Let's ride for a while more. When I reach the front, you have to return to the carriage." Zhong Xiaohua nodded profusely. By the time Zhong Xiaohua and the convoy passed through the empty space, the entire convoy had already passed by. Zhong Xiaohua saw the escort that escort leader Luo had instructed earlier with a bag of items in his hand. He rode to the bandit's side and handed it to a bandit who was guarding there. The bandit took the bag and weighed it in his hand. He smiled and cupped his fists at the escort before he left. The escort immediately rode back to the front of the convoy. Zhong Xiaohua was puzzled. She asked Zhong Xiaohu in a low voice, "Second brother, why is this robbery so strange? They don't kill each other, and they don't even play 2 out of 3 games. Why did they just let it pass?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "What do you think robbery is? Is it just fighting and killing?" Zhong Xiaohua said, "If they don't fight and kill, how are they going to wait for the loot?" Zhong Xiaohu was not surprised and said, "Haha, there's nothing strange about it. I thought the same as you at first. The first time I encountered a robbery, I was so nervous that I was sweating. But after a few more times, it's always been the same. All bark and no bite. Only now do I understand what's going on." Zhong Xiaohua asked curiously, "Is there an inside story?" Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "Actually, it's very simple. Bandits rob people for nothing more than money, and there's a method to it as well. If they just fight and kill, they'll be at a disadvantage. As the ancients say, killing 1,000 people will hurt 800 of your own men. There's a price to pay for killing. If you can get 10,000 guans of riches for each kill, then it's naturally worth it. But where would you find such a good business? Let's not talk about this road of yours. If people often die here, the merchants in the future will take a detour. If they don't take this road, won't you lose your source of income? Moreover, every time you fight and kill, how many brothers do you have to risk their lives for? Therefore, robbing also requires skill. If you can avoid fighting, then don't fight. Even if you don't get much money each time, as long as you get something every time, then won't you be able to make a long-term profit? Zhong Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully and said to herself, as the ancients say, there are 360 professions, and every profession produces its own master. As a bandit, you also need to have a professional eye. Zhong Xiaohu continued, when merchants travel on the road, they're usually aware of the risks. If they don't have much money, then they're naturally not too afraid of bandits. When they encounter bandits, they just have to offer some money. If they have a lot of money, then they'll have to find someone to protect them. An escort agency just happens to be doing this kind of business. Bodyguards of an escort agency followed the same logic as bandits robbing. Both of them had to pay attention to harmony and wealth. If one were to blindly use force, then the bandits would not be able to get along with you. Then, the escort agency would cease to operate because it would not be able to withstand constant fighting and killing. Therefore, the most important thing in an escort agency was to maintain one's reputation. If your reputation is big enough, then many bandits will know your signboard. Naturally, they'll look out for each other when they encounter you. Look out for each other? Zhong Xiaohu was a little stunned. Yes, look out for each other. In other words, the escort agency will give the bandits some money according to the value of their bodyguards' belongings as payment for passage. The bandits will accept it with a smile and let you go. Just like today, you didn't have to worry about being harassed by bandits for 500 li, Zhong Xiaohu explained. Zhong Xiaohua didn't understand and said, "Second brother, when you put it that way, it sounds like we're friends." Zhong Xiaohu blinked and said, "Snakes and rats are a family." Hehe, that's how it is. Zhong Xiaohua asked again, if there's no escort agency's protection, then what if the merchants are willing to give so much money? Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, if there's no escort agency's protection, then the merchants are like a piece of braised pork. Who wouldn't want to eat them in one bite? Why would they care about the little benefits you give them? Zhong Xiaohua asked again, then there were so many bandits just now. If they all came at once, then our escort agency probably wouldn't have been able to deal with them. Wouldn't they have eaten them all in one bite? Even if there were some casualties, it would have been worth it. Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, then we'll have to talk about another aspect. There are big and small escort agencies and their strength is uneven. If it were a small escort agency, then there would naturally be this risk. However, our Lotus Flower Escort Agency is backed by the Misty School. To put it bluntly, we're just a tool for the Misty School to amass wealth in the escort agency. Chapter 142. A typical robbery in the pugilistic world ended just like that. Zhong Xiaohua, who had originally thought that she would be able to witness a good show, was instead taught a good lesson by Zhong Xiaohu. Although she did not see the bloody side of the pugilistic world, she understood the greed and the exchange of power and money in the pugilistic world. At the same time, she also understood that in the pugilistic world, only the fist was the boss. In the following days, Zhong Xiaohua prayed that they would not encounter any more robbers or bandits. It was very different from when they first arrived. However, the wind and rain of the Jianghu would not change because of a certain person's thoughts. Along the way, it was not a sunny road. Along the way, they still encountered some blind thieves who did not put the Lotus Escort Agency and the Misty Sect in their eyes. However, as long as they were not arrogant and did not make a fart, how much insight could those thieves have? Basically, under the powerful force of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency's escorts, who were united with escort leader Luo at the center, the group collapsed. However, heaven and earth were merciless, and swords and spears had no eyes. A few of the escorts were still injured, and one of them even had his wrist almost chopped off. Although the escorts had the best medicine on them, and the team had also found the best doctor at the next town they stopped at, the injury was still very serious. His life was saved, but his hand was completely crippled. For the rest of the journey, the injured escort lay in the carriage behind Zhong Xiaohua. Zhong Xiaohua could see his listless eyes and gloomy expression from time to time. This made Zhong Xiaohua, who was originally very lively, feel unusually heavy. Fortunately, the Lotus Flower Escort Agency's martial skills were still quite good. There was only one seriously injured escort along the way. Although Zhong Xiaohua felt very uncomfortable, escort leader Luo was very happy. He felt that he was blessed by a lucky star and that the journey back was too smooth. This small town by the sea was really far from Pingyang City. They had only entered the Misty School's territory after traveling for almost a month. The escorts seemed to be very sensitive about their own family's sphere of influence. According to the original plan, they were supposed to arrive in the afternoon, but because one of their carriages broke down and delayed their journey, they only arrived at a remote mountain village in the afternoon. If it had been a few days ago, the convoy would have set up camp and rested. But tonight, not only escort leader Luo, but the other escorts were also determined to continue their journey. Even if they had to travel at night, they had to reach their own family's territory first. Therefore, the group of people drove the carriages forward under the cover of dusk and only entered a small town when it was close to midnight. As soon as they entered the town, escort leader Luo let out a long sigh and shouted, "Brothers, we're in our own territory now." Ha ha. Everyone laughed as well, causing the sleepy Zhong Xiaohua to look at them with a puzzled expression. For the next few days, the escort team was obviously not as strict as before and their itinerary was also much more casual. Therefore, by the time they reached Pingyang City, it was already midnight. Although Pingyang City was a city, it was only an inland city and did not have much strategic significance. Therefore, out of the 4 city gates, only 3 were closed at night and 1 was left open for people to enter and leave. This was also one of the reasons why the Lotus Flower Escort Agency's convoy was traveling at night. Who wouldn't want to return to the agency early, wash up, put everything down and sleep easily? Of course, Zhong Xiaohua had already fallen into a deep sleep when the convoy was just nearing Pingyang City. The convoy quickly arrived at the entrance of the escort agency. It was already late at night and the door of the agency was naturally closed. Someone went up and knocked on the door. When the person who opened the door saw that it was the escort team who had returned, he no longer complained about being disturbed in the middle of the night. He hurriedly opened the middle gate and ordered more than 20 carriages to be driven to the square of the escort agency. The dozens of people returning to the escort agency caused quite a commotion and the guards at the gatehouse were aware of it. The leader first congratulated escort leader Luo for safely bringing the people from the escort agency and the merchants back to Pingyang City. Then, he said to Zhong Xiaohu, "You're finally back. Fourth Master Wen has been looking for you for many days. He instructed us to bring you to see him immediately once you're back." Zhong Xiaohu was stunned. "Why?" He carefully confirmed, "Must I go even if it's midnight?" The guard smiled bitterly and said, "Fourth Master said so, but he didn't say what time it was. Since you're back now, I think you should make a trip there. Otherwise, it won't be good if Fourth Master gets angry." Zhong Xiaohu thought for a moment and said, "All right then. Thank you for the reminder." Then, Zhong Xiaohu went to the square. He first carried the unconscious Zhong Xiaohua and placed her on the Kang bed in his small house. Then, he tidied up his belongings and brought them back into the house. Only then did he hesitantly go to the inner courtyard and into Fourth Master Wen's room. It was already past midnight and Fourth Master Wen's courtyard was quiet. Zhong Xiaohu tiptoed to the door and hesitated. Just as he was about to raise his hand and knock on the door, a slightly aged voice sounded from inside. "Who is it? Why are you looking for me at this time?" That voice sounded abruptly, scaring Zhong Xiaohu so much that he trembled. He was secretly impressed. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Fourth Master Wen's internal energy was one of the best in the Lotus Escort Agency. "I've just approached the door and he heard me. Ari, How much longer do I have to train to have this kind of achievement? Inside the room, fourth master Wen was furious. He cursed in his heart, which unlucky child is outside? Why doesn't he have any morals of respecting the old and loving the young? This old man usually has insomnia and difficulty sleeping. Today, I was coincidentally able to close my eyes early. I was just about to fall asleep when you woke me up. If you wanted to come, then come. Why did you have to tiptoe around? It made me think that you were some evil person. My old heart was so scared that it was thumping. If you hadn't raised your hand to knock on the door, this old man would have immediately jumped out of the window and beat you up. I'll let you know the consequences of waking an old man up. Zhong Xiaohu stood up straight. His tone was full of respect as he said, "It's me, Zhong Xiaohu." Zhong Xiaohu? Fourth master Wen asked hesitantly, "What business do you have with me?" When Zhong Xiaohu heard fourth master Wen question him, he couldn't help but be shocked. He hurriedly said, "Fourth master, I just came back from running an escort mission outside. Xiao Sai at the door said that you were looking for me. If he saw me, he told me to come see you immediately." "Ah." Fourth master Wen said angrily, "So it's like that." Cough cough tilde fourth master Wen was so angry that he couldn't breathe properly. He actually coughed and drank a mouthful of water before continuing, "Did I say that? However, even if I did say that, there's no need to come in the middle of the night." Zhong Xiaohu said awkwardly, "Xiao Sai said that your instructions were hurried and thought that it was something important. Moreover, you didn't say that you couldn't come in the middle of the night. That's why he informed me. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. When the sun rises, I'll come back to listen to your teachings." When fourth master Wen heard this, he said, "Oh, I know. I ordered this a month ago. It's been almost 2 months. I almost forgot. Sigh, I'm old and tend to forget things. All right, you don't have to go back. Wait a moment, I'll get up now. Anyway, tonight will definitely be a sleepless night." Zhong Xiaohu waited quietly for a moment before fourth master Wen opened the door to let him in. The two of them sat down. Fourth master Wen poured some water for Zhong Xiaohu to drink. Only then did fourth master Wen stare at Zhong Xiaohu and say, "Zhong Xiaohu, this escort mission took quite a long time. It's been hard on you." Zhong Xiaohu hurriedly said, "I don't dare, fourth master Wen. I'm only escort leader Luo's assistant. Escort leader Luo makes many decisions. I'm just a helper." Fourth master Wen said with a smile, "This escort mission lasted past the new year. It's been hard on you. Do the subordinates have any complaints?" Zhong Xiaohu replied, "Nothing much. I just want the escort agency to give me more allowance. After all, it's for the agency to celebrate the new year outside. I can't reunite with my family." Fourth master Wen stroked his sparse beard and said, "Of course. The agency will not mistreat anyone who contributes to the agency. It's the same for going out for the new year, and it's the same for greater contributions." Zhong Xiaohu was stunned. He thought to himself, what does that mean? However, he still said respectfully, "Then I'll thank fourth master on behalf of my brothers for your care." Fourth master Wen waved his hand and said, "Haha, there's no need. It's what I should do." Then, he hesitated for a moment and asked, "Did this escort mission go smoothly?" Zhong Xiaohu was puzzled. He said, "Yes, it was very normal. We only met some common bandits along the way. Escort leader Luo handled them with ease." However, he thought to himself, what's the old man doing? Could it be that he can't sleep and wants to find someone to chat with? I'm tired. I still want to sleep. Fourth master Wen asked amiably, "Then when did you guys return to the agency?" Zhong Xiaohu frowned and said, "Just now. We just entered the courtyard. I put the things in the room and came over." Fourth master Wen nodded and said, "Oh, then you didn't hear any news." "News?" Zhong Xiaohu was stunned. "What news?" Fourth master Wen thought for a moment and changed his expression to one of grief. He said, "Zhong Xiaohu, you can be considered my confidant. It's fate that you and I are able to come to the Lotus Escort Agency as an escort. I think you also hold the belief that your youth, your passion, your sweat, and even your life will be dedicated to the agency. Zhong Xiaohu was even more stunned. These parallel sentences were said in such a refined manner that he couldn't quite react. Looking at Zhong Xiaohu's shocked expression, Fourth Master Wen continued, "Back then, I was the same as you. I also had the same thoughts, to dedicate my life to the agency. You see, I've worked hard for most of my life to see the agency prosper to this day. The agency is my home. It's up to everyone to love their job. If we didn't have the thought of dedicating our lives, the agency wouldn't have been able to get to where it is today." Zhong Xiaohu felt dizzy. He said carefully, "Fourth Master, did I do something wrong? Please guide me in time." Fourth Master Wen smiled and said, "You did very well. You didn't embarrass me." Zhong Xiaohu opened his mouth and said, "Then you." Fourth Master Wen changed into a sorrowful expression and said, "It's like this. I have some very sad news to tell you. I hope you can be mentally prepared. I think you should be prepared first. It's best if you take a horse stance and listen to me carefully. Also, don't be anxious after hearing it." Zhong Xiaohu smiled and said, "What news, Fourth Master?" "You've said so much, making me feel like I'm shrouded in fog. I don't know what to do." Fourth Master Wen nodded and said, "Not bad. As expected of the person I've chosen. Just this calmness alone is enough for you to take on great responsibilities." Then, Fourth Master Wen said, "Actually, I think you should also know that as the saying goes, life is great, death is glorious. Some people are alive, but they're already dead. Some people are dead, but they're still alive in our hearts. Also, some people's deaths are heavier than Mount Tai, and some people's deaths are lighter than a goose feather. If one day I can reach this level, I'll have no regrets in this life." Zhong Xiaohu looked at Fourth Master Wen's gushing words and sighed with emotion. However, he didn't dare to say anything. He only wanted to know what the news that made him so sad was. Suddenly, he seemed to feel something. Could it be his home? Oh no, could it be the bandits of Shitsue Mountain? Or the bullies of Lu Town? Zhong Xiaohu was stunned. What should he do? Fourth Master Wen seemed to not see Zhong Xiaohu's uncertain expression under the light. He continued to say, "In a person's life, it's easy to do one or two good deeds. The rarest thing is to do good deeds every day. If you can do a few things that make people grateful for your whole life will be moved. Also, don't do small good deeds and don't do small evil deeds. No matter how big or small the good deeds are, they should be done persistently. Not to mention those who have sacrificed their own lives for the sake of others' lives. We should all remember this act of sacrificing oneself for others. On behalf of the Lotus Escort Agency, on behalf of Huanxi Mountain Villa, and on behalf of the Misty School, I would like to extend my highest respect to you." After saying this, Fourth Master Wen wiped the sweat from his forehead and said awkwardly, "Alas, this bookbag fan's words are really hard to remember. I've already recited them countless times. Why can't they be pleasant to listen to? You can't blame me. I thought you would come back soon. Who knew that you would only come back today? I haven't looked at them for nearly a month. Alas, it must be hard on this old Fourth Master. He was sweating from memorizing them in the winter. It could be seen that memorizing them by rote wasn't the right way. Mastering them through a comprehensive study and understanding the memory was the hard way." When Fourth Master Wen raised his head from the pile of old books and saw Zhong Xiaohu's gloomy face, he said sorrowfully, "Zhong Xiaohu, it seems that you already know what I mean. The dead are gone, and the living have to continue living. You must restrain your grief and accept it. Turn your grief into strength and continue to work hard. Take over your brother's baton and carry on your brother's unfinished wish. Contribute your blood and your life to the Lotus Escort Agency and the Misty School." Zhong Xiaohu's expression instantly became brilliant. His eyes widened and his mouth opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. He said in disbelief, "My brother? Zhong Xiaohua?" Fourth Master Wen nodded solemnly and said in an abnormally low bass voice, "Yes, it's your brother, Zhong Xiaohua. He's a good employee of Huanxi Manor, a good image of the Lotus Escort Agency, a good friend of the Misty School, and our hero. He will forever live in our hearts." Zhong Xiaohu stood up with a whoosh and said, "Is there a mistake?" Fourth Master Wen said unhappily, "How can there be a mistake? Sit down, sit down. I was just praising you for your calmness. Why are you so hot-blooded now? I know you can't accept this news right away. That's why I had the escort agency's Fan Dashu write something like this. I've been telling you for half a day. Why are you still so careless? Why did you suddenly stand up in a fluster? Calm down, calm down. You must have the calmness to not panic in the face of a landslide. This is the basic quality that leaders like us should have." Zhong Xiaohu smiled and sat back down in his chair, saying, "Fourth Master, I was a little surprised when I heard this news. That's why I jumped up. Please don't blame me." Fourth Master Wen stroked his sparse beard and said, "Not bad. You seem to have recovered very quickly. You have my style. Your future is limitless. I have high hopes for you." Then, Fourth Master Wen stood up and took out a small wooden box from a small cabinet behind him. He placed it in front of Zhong Xiaohu and said, "Although Zhong Xiaohua has left us, we will definitely publicize his touching deeds and let him leave his name in the history of Jianghu. However, the situation in Jianghu is changing rapidly. There are many situations that are disadvantageous to the Misty School. We cannot publicize Zhong Xiaohua's sacrifice to save his master for now. Therefore, we can only compensate in other ways. This was personally given to me by the Misty School's sect leader Ou Peng. He asked me to pass it to you as a sign of his deep respect for Zhong Xiaohua." Zhong Xiaohu opened the wooden box in confusion. Inside was a thick stack of banknotes. At a glance, there were at least 100 banknotes. The banknote on the top was actually worth 100 taels. There were actually 10,000 taels of banknotes in this wooden box. Zhong Xiaohu was so frightened that he trembled. Ever since he was born, he had never seen so much money. This was enough to scare him to death. He pushed the wooden box and said, "Fourth Master, why is this? What happened to my little brother Zhong Xiaohua? Did they make a mistake? If they can't explain it clearly, how can I dare to accept this money?" Fourth Master Wen said, "I don't know the specific details. Huanxi Manor is very secretive. I can't find out anything for the time being. I only heard from Qiu Tong that your little brother Zhong Xiaohua loyally protected his master. In order to save Manor Lord Ou, he sacrificed his precious life." "What?" Zhong Xiaohu was stunned. He said in surprise, "There's such a thing. How come I didn't know? Why didn't Xiaohua tell me?" "Tell you?" Fourth Master Wen said with a smile, "What did he tell you?" Zhong Xiaohu said solemnly, "Xiaohua, he's sleeping in my room right now. He followed the escort team all the way back. The brothers in the escort team all know this. However, he only said that he fell into the water during the night camp. He didn't tell me much." Fourth Master Wen's hand that was stroking his sparse beard trembled. A few more strands of beard fell off. His sparse beard became even sparser. He ignored the pain and stood up from the chair. Just like Zhong Xiaohu, he said in a stern voice, "Really? He's sleeping in your room right now?" He didn't seem to be as calm as when he was reprimanding Zhong Xiaohu. Zhong Xiaohu said, "Yes, he's sleeping soundly in my room." Fourth Master Wen quickly grabbed Zhong Xiaohu's hand and said, "Let's go. Let's go quickly. Let me see." Zhong Xiaohu was pulled up by him. He thought to himself, calm down, calm down. Fourth Master Wen, you're also a leader." Chapter 143. In the end, Fourth Master Wen finally calmed down. He hurriedly pulled Zhong Xiaohu's hand and ran all the way to Zhong Xiaohu's hut. Only when he saw Zhong Xiaohua sleeping soundly on the Kang bed did he truly calm down. Fourth Master Wen twirled his sparse beard and nodded repeatedly. His smile was as brilliant as a mountain flower as he said, "Good, good, good." The continuous cheers made Zhong Xiaohu confused. He didn't know if it was because Zhong Xiaohua was alive or because he had saved 10,000 taels of silver. Thinking of the thick stack of banknotes, Zhong Xiaohu couldn't help but feel envious. That was a huge sum of money. If it was his, how good would it be? However, looking at his brother's sweet smile in his sleep, This happiness made his heart warm. What banknotes? Even if it was a mountain of gold, he wouldn't exchange it. Fourth Master Wen said a few good words and didn't say anything else. He just stood there quietly. Zhong Xiaohu didn't know what he meant, but he also accompanied him. After a while, Fourth Master Wen asked in puzzlement, Zhong Xiaohu, you can't always make me stand. Zhong Xiaohu was surprised. He quickly pulled over a stool and said, Fourth Master, please sit. Fourth Master Wen stomped his feet and said, where can't I sit? Why would I come to your hut to be a cold bench? Zhong Xiaohu didn't understand and said, then Fourth Master Wen, please wait a moment. I'll go find a soft couch for you. Fourth Master Wen was angry and said, you don't have any eyesight at all, not to mention sensitivity. You still want to improve? I don't think there's a way. Zhong Xiaohu quickly went forward and said, Fourth Master, look at what you're saying. Haven't I always been improving? What do you mean? Fourth Master Wen said self-deprecatingly, I'm already standing here. Why haven't you woken up your brother? Let me ask him in detail. Zhong Xiaohu suddenly understood and thought to himself, if you want to wake him up, just say it. If you don't say it, how would I know? I can't read your mind. However, he didn't dare to say that. He continued to smile and said, Fourth Master, it's not that I don't want to call my brother, but he has a problem with sleeping. As long as he's asleep, no matter how you call him, he won't wake up. If you don't believe me, you can try to push him yourself. Fourth Master Wen was stunned and said in disbelief, is there such a thing? I don't believe it. After saying that, she stepped forward and pushed Zhong Xiaohua hard. She shouted in his ear, Zhong Xiaohua, Zhong Xiaohua. Zhong Xiaohua's breathing was even and she was still sound asleep. Fourth Master Wen thought for a moment and used both hands to pull Zhong Xiaohua out of the blanket and shook him in the air. Zhong Xiaohua's body was small to begin with. Now that Fourth Master Wen was holding him in the air, he really looked like a human-shaped toy. Zhong Xiaohu almost laughed out loud. Fourth Master Wen saw that Zhong Xiaohua was still motionless as if he had lost consciousness and lost interest. He stuffed him back into the blanket and turned around with a smile. It seems like what you said is true. It seems like I've wronged you. Zhong Xiaohu quickly said, I wouldn't dare, I wouldn't dare. Fourth Master Wen thought for a moment and said, since your brother has returned safely, Manor Head OU will definitely see him immediately if he knows. Tomorrow morning, tell him not to go anywhere. Someone will probably come to bring him back to the manor. Zhong Xiaohu nodded and said, all right, I understand. Fourth Master, I'll watch over him and won't let him go anywhere. Fourth Master Wen smiled and said, all right, then you should rest too. I'll go find the gate guard, Xiao Sai. He actually let you disturb my sleep. I'll definitely not forgive him. I'll send him to Huanxi Manor to deliver a message. Zhong Xiaohu nodded and didn't dare to speak. He was afraid that Fourth Master Wen would take his anger out on him. That Fourth Master Wen quickly walked to the door and didn't forget to look back at Zhong Xiaohua who was sleeping like a pig. He said to himself enviously, sleeping so sweetly. It's still good to be young. If I could sleep so sweetly, I wouldn't even exchange for 10,000 taels of silver. After saying this, he turned around and left reluctantly. Behind him, Zhong Xiaohu wanted to say something but hesitated. He thought, Fourth Master, can you give me 10,000 taels of silver and I'll exchange for it? The next morning, Zhong Xiaohua opened his eyes and carefully looked around. Only then did he realize that he had returned to the familiar little house when he was recuperating. He had just sat up from his bed when Zhong Xiaohu on the other side of the Kang bed woke up. He quickly got up and said, you're awake, Xiaohua? Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, yes, second brother. You should sleep for a while more. I can't sleep anymore. Zhong Xiaohu was indeed tired. He laid down again and said, last night, Fourth Master Wen came and said that he had already sent a message to Huanxi Manor. He will definitely send someone to pick you up this morning and won't let you leave. When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, he asked, then do you know how the manor head and the others are? At this point, Zhong Xiaohu sat up from his bed with a who sound. He glared at Zhong Xiaohua and asked, speaking of which, I really have to ask you. Yesterday, Fourth master when said that you sacrificed yourself to save Mana Head OU. Everyone thought that you were already dead. What did this mean? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Today, you have to tell me clearly. Zhong Xiaohua stared blankly and said embarrassedly, this matter is very long. I'll tell you in detail in the future. Anyway, I'm not busy right now. I'm too lazy to tell you. If I tell you too much, you'll be worried instead. Zhong Xiaohu looked into Zhong Xiaohua's eyes and said seriously, Xiaohua, even if you don't tell me, when I find out, won't I be worried as well? Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, I know, second brother. I'll definitely tell you in the future. Is that not enough? Zhong Xiaohu thought for a moment and said, forget it. You've grown up and have your own opinions. Do as you see fit. If you want to tell me, then tell second brother about it. If you don't want to, then hide it in your heart. Zhong Xiaohua said, no matter how much I grow up, you're still not my second brother. If there's anything to discuss, I'll definitely look for you. Don't worry. That's right, according to what you said, Mana Head OU should be fine. Zhong Xiaohu thought for a moment and said, it should be. Otherwise, fourth master Wen would have said it last night. Zhong Xiaohua nodded and said, that's good. All right, second brother, I'm going to practice my fist. You go to sleep. Zhong Xiaohu jumped up from the Kang bed and said, I'll go too. After hearing what you said, I can't sleep either. Thus, the two brothers went to the escort agency's martial arts training plaza one after the other. The 20 carriages that came back last night were still parked at one end of the plaza. It was still early and there weren't many people practicing their fist techniques in the plaza. Zhong Xiaohua saw this and was very happy. Although he felt that the Big Dipper magical fist that he practiced was perfect, it wasn't a fist technique that was circulated in Jianghu. He always felt that it was suitable for him to practice. If he were to practice it in public, he would always feel a little awkward and unpresentable. Zhong Xiaohua found an empty space and stood still with a pole. Following the path of the Big Dipper magical fist, he practiced each move. Zhong Xiaohu did the same. He practiced his most proficient 6 directions fist from beginning to end. When Zhong Xiaohu finished practicing, he felt very comfortable all over. He sighed and said, the ancients said that life lies in movement. They didn't deceive me. When he looked up, that Zhong Xiaohua was still practicing his fist techniques. Seeing his moves that were like moving clouds and flowing water, he must have succeeded in practicing the fist technique that he had perfected. Thus, he carefully looked at it. As expected, Zhong Xiaohu actually found 6 moves of the 6 directions fist technique from Zhong Xiaohua's fist technique. Zhong Xiaohu couldn't help but think to himself, Xiaohua's fist technique is really strange. It's a mess after changing it, but it can still be combined so fluently. It's really a rare miracle. The strangest thing was that Zhong Xiaohua didn't stop practicing. Zhong Xiaohu was even more puzzled. How many moves did this fist technique have? But when he took a closer look, he realized that Zhong Xiaohua was practicing it over and over again. When the number of people in the square gradually increased, Zhong Xiaohua finally finished practicing the Big Dipper magical fist 9 times. That warm flow flowed through his body with the last move. Only then did Zhong Xiaohua stop. Seeing his second brother looking at him from the side, he quickly ran over. Zhong Xiaohu saw his brother coming over and asked curiously, Xiaohua, do you practice your fist technique so diligently every day? Do you practice it many times every time? Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, not many, just 9 times. It's useless to practice more. Zhong Xiaohu didn't mind when he heard that. He said, overdoing it is as bad as falling short. You have to be careful. Zhong Xiaohua didn't think much of it and said, sometimes, I practice it 81 times a day. What's this? You see, I'm not panting and my face isn't red. Naturally, there's no problem. Zhong Xiaohu wanted to persuade him again, but he remembered that when he only knew the Liuhe fist, he also practiced it over and over again. So, he shut his mouth. At this time, the number of people practicing in the square had increased. The two of them walked back slowly. When they reached the door of the small courtyard, they heard a familiar voice behind them. It cried out in surprise, Zhong Xiaohua, it's really you. Zhong Xiaohua heard it and turned back in surprise. He shouted, Captain He, you're still alive? Zhong Xiaohu looked back. Wasn't it Captain He Tianshu from the Huanxi Mountain Villa's medicinal field? He Tianshu ran closer with a face full of joy. When he heard Zhong Xiaohua's words, he couldn't help but say bitterly, Zhong Xiaohua, you're still alive. Why can't I be alive? Zhong Xiaohua blushed and muttered, I haven't seen you guys in a long time. I don't know about you guys. I'm just happy to see you. He Tianshu lovingly patted Zhong Xiaohua's head and said with a smile, It's okay, Zhong Xiaohua. Why would I mind? After he finished speaking, he turned to Zhong Xiaohu and said, Zhong Xiaohu, we've met before. I'm He Tianshu from the Huanxi Mountain Villa. Yesterday, I received a message from Fourth Master Wen. The Villa Master was very surprised and asked us to pick up Zhong Xiaohua early in the morning. You see, Zhong Xiaohu said with a smile, Fourth Master Wen already told me last night. You can bring him back to the villa now. Then he said to Zhong Xiaohua, Xiaohua, pay more attention to your safety in the future. Don't go to places where bears appear. Zhong Xiaohua said with a smile, I know, second brother. That's right, didn't you want to know the ins and outs of the matter? Why don't you come with me to the villa? Sister Villa Master will definitely want me to tell her. Zhong Xiaohu thought for a moment and shook his head, forget it. The escort team just returned last night. There must be a lot of things to do today. I'd better deal with the matters here first. Seeing this, Zhong Xiaohua didn't insist. She said goodbye to Zhong Xiaohu and followed He Tianshu out of the escort agency. When Zhong Xiaohu saw that his younger brother had walked far away, he turned around and went back into the house. He found 5 coins worth of loose silver from his money pouch and went to the accountant's residence. He handed the silver to the sleepy accountant before he went to eat breakfast and began to wrap up the escort team's return. When Zhong Xiaohua followed He Tianshu out of the escort agency, they were greeted by a large black carriage. It was twice as big as the carriage Zhong Xiaohua used to ride. Zhong Xiaohua couldn't help but be stunned. At this moment, the curtain of the carriage was lifted and a clear voice sounded, Xiaohua, quickly get in. Zhong Xiaohua took a closer look. Who else could it be but Qiu Tong? Zhong Xiaohua called out, Sister Qiu Tong, you're here too? Then she ran forward. When Zhong Xiaohua got into the carriage, He Tianshu also followed. Zhong Xiaohua's first sentence was, Sister Qiu Tong, this carriage is really big. Qiu Tong smiled and said, Yes, this is the young lady's carriage. Today, she specially came out to pick you up, our great benefactor. He Tianshu also smiled and said, We're also basking in your glory. That's why we had such a large carriage. Zhong Xiaohua blushed a little and said, It's nothing, Sister Qiu Tong. You've always treated me very well, so this is what I should do. He Tianshu shook his head and said, Sigh, this is what I should do, but I can't do it well. Zhong Xiaohua, I really don't know what to say about you. You've really exceeded our expectations. Zhong Xiaohua continued to be shy and asked, Oh right, Captain He, what happened after that? Sister, oh you didn't have anything serious, right? I've always wanted to know. He Tianshu smiled and told her everything that happened after Zhong Xiaohua fainted. When Zhong Xiaohua heard that Ouyang Yang was fine and that the black-clothed men didn't chase after them, she couldn't help but pat her chest to express her relief. Qiu Tong smiled and said, This is all thanks to you. Zhong Xiaohua was stunned and said, I fell into the water, how could I help? Qiu Tong smiled and said, You fell into the water, but the black-clothed men didn't know. You killed that old man with a single slash. That old man was the most powerful among them, so of course they were scared witless and didn't dare to cause trouble again. Although Zhong Xiaohua wasn't very old, she knew the depth of the situation. She smiled and said, Sister Qiu Tong, don't think too highly of me. I think the black-clothed men should be worried about the reinforcements behind us. He Tianshu interrupted and said, Forget it, anything we say now is just advice after the fact. Who knows what they're thinking? Anyway, we've already returned safely. Zhong Xiaohua seemed to have thought of something and asked, Oh right, Captain He, do you know who the black-clothed men are? He Tianshu frowned and said, I'm not too sure. After we returned, These matters were handed over to the disciplinary hall of the sect. Who knows if they've found them or not? I'm not too sure either. Zhong Xiaohua nodded and didn't say anything else. Actually, she had a vague feeling that since the black-clothed men dared to kill Ouyang Yang, they must have a certain level of confidence. This confidence wasn't just a guarantee of success, but also a guarantee of destroying the corpse and destroying all evidence if they failed. Qiu Tong was still worried about Zhong Xiaohua's injuries and couldn't help but ask. Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "At that time, I was knocked unconscious by that old man. It took me more than 10 days to wake up. Now, my injuries are completely healed. Look, I was still practicing my boxing at the escort agency just now." Hearing this, Qiu Tong was slightly relieved and said with lingering fear, "After that, we sent many people to look for you, but they couldn't find you. Who knew that you'd run to a small town along the coast? This is far from what we imagined. Miss kept wondering if you..." Zhong Xiaohua opened her mouth and was about to explain when Tianshu waved his hand and said, "Let's not talk about it now. The villa lord will definitely ask about it later. You can talk about it in detail later so that you don't have to repeat it twice." Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "Captain, he is right. Sister Qiu Tong, you can listen to it later." The carriage drove steadily and quickly. It didn't take long for them to arrive at the side gate of Huanxi Mountain Villa. Now, the number of guards at the gate of Huanxi Mountain Villa was twice as many as before. They also checked carefully. Although it was the carriage of the manor lord, they still checked it before letting it in. The carriage entered the villa and stopped in the small courtyard where they went out last time. This place was very close to the inner courtyard. Under Qiu Tong's guidance, they passed through several courtyards and arrived at the main hall of the inner courtyard. There was no one else in the main hall except for Elder Yu and Ouyang Yang. When Zhong Xiaohua came in with Qiu Tong, Ouyang Yang was looking outside from time to time. She seemed to be very anxious to see Zhong Xiaohua. When Zhong Xiaohua entered the main hall, Elder Yu and Ouyang Yang both stood up. Ouyang Yang walked towards Zhong Xiaohua. How could Zhong Xiaohua dare to trouble her leader? She quickly walked over and called out, "Sister Ouyang, are you all right?" Ouyang Yang smiled like a flower and looked at Zhong Xiaohua. "I'm very good." "Zhong Xiaohua, how about you? Let me see if your injuries have healed." After saying that, she took Zhong Xiaohua's hand and looked around. Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "I've healed a long time ago. Sister Ouyang, don't worry, I'm very lucky." When Ouyang Yang heard that, she said, "That's good. We were all worried about you and thought that you..." Just like Qiu Tong, Ouyang Yang didn't say the word out loud. After that, Ouyang Yang asked Zhong Xiaohua to sit on a chair and asked her about the situation after she got injured. Zhong Xiaohua thought for a moment and told her about how she was rescued after she got injured. After she recovered, she went out to look for a way home. She happened to meet the escort team of the Lotus Escort Agency and found her second brother. After that, she followed the escort team back to Pingyang City. However, he didn't mention Shitai's name, Little Dream's name, and what happened in the cave. Firstly, Shitai told him not to tell anyone. Secondly, he came across the cave by chance when he was catching rabbits. He didn't treat it as something important. Upon hearing Zhong Xiaohua's encounter, everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Zhong Xiaohua's situation was quite bizarre. He had actually drifted so far away and had even met a familiar relative. Most importantly, Zhong Xiaohua had suffered such heavy internal injuries, yet he had managed to survive while drifting. Furthermore, he had recovered in such a short period of time. Ouyang Yang and Elder Yu wanted to ask more about Shitai, but Zhong Xiaohua had already promised not to tell anyone. Moreover, she was his savior, so all the more he couldn't say anything. In the pugilistic world, one's promise was worth 1,000 gold. Everyone understood and didn't ask anymore. However, Elder Yu said, "Zhong Xiaohua, can you let me see your sword? Please collect it, thank you." Chapter 144. Zhong Xiaohua hesitated for a moment before taking out his beloved sword and handing it over to Elder Yu. Elder Yu reached out to receive the sword and felt its weight. He couldn't help but frown. He carefully examined the ordinary sword but couldn't find anything special about it. He even injected his internal energy into it in hopes of discovering something. Unfortunately, he didn't have Li Jian's sword aura ability and the sword didn't have any reaction. It was as if the sword was just a toy other than its weight. Elder Yu shook his head and continued to look at it. He didn't return it to Zhong Xiaohua, hoping to discover something from it. Zhong Xiaohua looked at Elder Yu eagerly and couldn't help but ask, "Elder Yu, don't tell me you don't want to return it to me." Elder Yu looked at Zhong Xiaohua and smiled. "Yes, this toy is really not bad. It could even pierce through the black-clothed man's iron shirt. Of course I want to keep it for fun." Zhong Xiaohua shrugged and said helplessly, "Since Elder Yu likes it, I also want to give it to you. Ari, it's a pity that when I was saved, I didn't have anything to thank him with, so I gave this sword away. Now, even if I wanted to give it to you, I can't." Elder Yu glared at Zhong Xiaohua and said, "Who are you trying to fool? Who would want this thing? Don't play any tricks, I don't plan on taking it from you." At this moment, Ouyang Yang also walked forward and asked curiously, "This is the thing that killed the black-clothed man?" He Tianshu also walked forward and said, "Yes, it's this sword. The wound should be the same as the one on the black-clothed man's throat. It was also given to me when I bought the steel sword." Ouyang Yang wanted to take it for a closer look, but Elder Yu said, "Manor Lord, don't take it yourself. Although this sword looks like a toy, it's not light. I'll take it and you can take a closer look." Ouyang Yang followed his advice and only frowned as she looked at the sword. She also didn't understand what it meant and said, "Although my physique is limited and I can't practice martial arts, I've read a lot of books. However, I've never heard of any records of such a divine weapon." Elder Yu stretched out his hand and touched the tip of the small sword a few times. He was even more astonished as he said, "This small sword clearly hasn't been sharpened. How did it pierce through the body?" He Tianshu also said, "Yes, when I saw the black-clothed man's wound, I also had the same thought. That sword was given to Zhong Xiaohua by me. I also remember that it wasn't sharpened." Elder Yu thought for a moment before turning to ask Zhong Xiaohua, "Did you really use this small sword to kill the man in black?" Zhong Xiaohua helplessly nodded again and gave an affirmative answer. Elder Yu threw the small sword to Zhong Xiaohua and said, "How about this, Zhong Xiaohua, stab me with the sword, just like how you stabbed the black-clothed man." When Zhong Xiaohua and the others heard this, they were shocked and said in unison, "This is not appropriate." "Yu Lao," Ouyang Yang said, "Why are you so serious? It's enough to know that it was this small sword that did it. There's no need to see its power." Zhong Xiaohua also shook her head and said, "Yu Lao, let's not talk about how the atmosphere is different now. I've already forgotten how I used the sword that day. Moreover, if I accidentally hurt you, I really can't bear the responsibility." He Tianshu also dissuaded, "Yu Lao, this junior has to say something inappropriate. That black-clothed man's martial arts might not be as good as yours, but his iron shirt skill is indeed top-notch. Even Chang'e's sword couldn't pierce through it. Do you think that you can let Chang'e stab you with your bare hands and not be injured?" Elder Yu thought for a moment and smiled bitterly, "I was the one who taught Zhong Xiaohua this sword move. I'm naturally happy that she succeeded in the rainy night. However, the power of this sword move was beyond my expectations. I really want to know the reason." Everyone still shook their heads. At this moment, Chiu Tong interrupted, "How about this, Yu Lao, let Zhong Xiaohua use the sword move as usual. However, how about letting her use half of her strength? I don't think it's a big deal." Aside from Zhong Xiaohua, everyone else showed an expression of agreement. In truth, when Zhong Xiaohua practiced this sword move, she never thought of using it on others. The angle of the sword move was tricky and the appearance of the warm current wasn't something that she could control. As long as the speed was fixed, it would appear. Zhong Xiaohua had experienced the power of the move and she estimated that Yu Lao might not be able to withstand it. However, if she really said that, she would definitely offend Yu Lao. She had only practiced for a few months, so how could she be so arrogant? There was also another problem. If it was as Chiu Tong said, why did she only use half of her strength? Her left hand was already used to the speed of the sword move. As long as the speed was right, even if she used half of her strength, the warm current would still appear. The small sword's power wouldn't decrease and she wasn't willing to take this risk. Zhong Xiaohua was about to shake her head in objection when her eyes suddenly lit up as she thought of an idea. She smiled and said, "All right, then we'll do as Qiu Tong says. I'll use half of my strength. How about you try this move of mine? But let's make it clear that this is the only move. If it doesn't work, then the other moves will be ordinary." Elder Yu smiled. "All right, let's try this move." With that, Elder Yu walked out first with everyone following behind him. Only Zhong Xiaohua walked at the back with a bitter expression. There was a wide path in the middle of the courtyard. Elder Yu and Zhong Xiaohua stood opposite each other and Zhong Xiaohua asked, "Elder Yu, are you ready?" "I'll start now." Elder Yu smiled. "All right, go ahead. I'll receive it here." Zhong Xiaohua still wasn't reassured and asked again, "Elder Yu, are you really not going to reconsider?" Elder Yu scolded with a smile, "Stinking brat, go ahead. I was the one who taught you that move, so why should I be afraid of you? Bring it on." Hearing this, Zhong Xiaohua moved her sword to her right hand and shouted, "Take this." She held the small sword in her right hand and executed the same move she used to assassinate the black-clothed old man. The small sword was like a shooting star as it pierced towards Elder Yu's throat from a mysterious angle. To be honest, this sword technique was very powerful. He Tianshu, who was watching from the side, was a little surprised. He had never seen Zhong Xiaohua practice swordsmanship before, but today, he saw that Zhong Xiaohua's swordsmanship was really skillful. The angle and strength of the sword technique were impeccable. He couldn't help but worry for Elder Yu. However, Elder Yu remained calm. What a joke. He was the one who had taught Zhong Xiaohua this sword technique. He had long since memorized the changes in the sword technique, the angle of the dagger, and the trajectory of the dagger. Before the dagger had even reached him, his body had already reacted naturally. When the dagger was right in front of his eyes, Elder Yu simply stretched out his hand and grabbed Zhong Xiaohua's wrist. If an enemy had grabbed his wrist, Zhong Xiaohua would have definitely struggled with all his might. However, this was a sparring session, so he naturally stopped and looked at Elder Yu, waiting to see what he would do. Elder Yu was also depressed. "So this is the assassination move? It's very ordinary." Zhong Xiaohua said, "This is the move. I'm sure of it." Elder Yu looked at the others. He Tianshu was far away that night, so he couldn't see it clearly. On the other hand, Oyu Yang and Qiu Tong were in a critical moment, so how could they notice it? Seeing that everyone wasn't sure, Elder Yu let go of his hand. "Then try other changes." Zhong Xiaohua was helpless. She could only pick up the small sword and execute all the moves she had learned with her right hand. But the result was that she was caught by Elder Yu's single arm. Elder Yu was still unsatisfied. "What if you use your full strength?" Everyone still objected when they heard that. However, Zhong Xiaohua thought in her heart, "If I use my right hand, I should be able to receive it with my full strength." Elder Yu was depressed. "If you don't use your full strength, we won't know how powerful this sword is." He Tianshu smiled. "Isn't that easy? Just use the big tree in the courtyard to test it." Elder Yu laughed. "Haha, He Tianshu is right. I've been thinking too much. Come, let's try the big tree." In the corner of the courtyard, there was a big tree that needed 2 people to wrap their arms around it. Elder Yu walked to the bottom of the tree and smiled at Oyu Yang. "Manor Lord, how about using this tree as an experiment?" Oyu Yang smiled. "It's fine as long as we don't kill it." Elder Yu turned to Zhong Xiaohua and said, "Zhong Xiaohua, use all your strength to stab this tree." Zhong Xiaohua cursed in her heart. "This tree is also a life. Why don't you have any love for the environment? When I practice my sword, I don't even bear to harm the flowers and plants. Why are you instructing me to do such a bad thing?" Zhong Xiaohua walked to the bottom of the tree and used the same move. She used all her strength to stab the tree. Zhong Xiaohua's arm strength of 500 kilograms wasn't for nothing. With a poochie sound, the small sword was able to pierce 3 to 4 inches into the tree. Although this result was very obvious, Elder Yu wasn't satisfied. The sharp tip of the sword could achieve the same result, but the tip of the sword didn't manage to break the black-robed elder's iron shirt. Therefore, he asked for the small sword in Zhong Xiaohua's hand and used it himself. He held the small sword tightly and stabbed it into the tree with all his strength. With a pu sound, the sword pierced into the tree. It was the length of the small sword tip, no different from an ordinary iron rod. Elder Yu pulled out the small sword and looked at the small hole in the tree. Without saying anything, he turned to Zhong Xiaohua and said, "Zhong Xiaohua, your strength isn't small. Even my stab wasn't as deep as yours." Zhong Xiaohua beamed with joy and said, "I don't dare. Elder Yu, I'm still young." They tried many times, but they weren't satisfied with the result. Thus, everyone used their superhuman imagination and attributed Zhong Xiaohua's success in assassinating the black-robed elder to carelessness. It must be because the black-robed elder saw Zhong Xiaohua's small sword and didn't pay attention to it. He thought that Zhong Xiaohua didn't know any martial arts, so he didn't use his full strength to block and only used his palm to block. However, when he realized that Zhong Xiaohua's arm had superhuman strength, it was already too late. Furthermore, the black-robed elder's throat might be the weak point of the iron shirt. It was very easy for him to get injured. When Zhong Xiaohua's small sword hit his vital point, the black-robed elder's iron shirt was broken. After everyone thought about it, they came to this conclusion. Everyone felt that this was the truth. Why? Wouldn't it be obvious just by looking at the black-robed elder's expression? Carelessness killed people. Details determined success or failure. Since there was a conclusion, everyone stopped talking about this topic and returned to the hall. Elder Yu returned the small sword to Zhong Xiaohua. Zhong Xiaohua carefully hid it in her arms and deliberately sat quite a distance away from Elder Yu. Everyone chatted for a while. Zhong Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and asked Oyu Yang, "Sister Oyu, let me ask you a question." Oyu Yang asked curiously, "What's the matter, Xiaohua? Just say it." We go on a long trip. Is there any subsidy or something like that?" Zhong Xiaohua asked weakly. "Or, after I get injured and leave you guys, is there any subsidy for my daily food and lodging?" Oyu Yang was shocked. She looked at Chiu Tong and said, "Xiaohua, what do you mean by this? Can't you be a little clearer?" Zhong Xiaohua blushed and told her about how escort leader Luo of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency asked Zhong Xiaohu for her living expenses. Oyu Yang's face turned white with anger. Just as she was about to speak, Chiu Tong spoke first. "Young miss, don't be angry. Let me handle this matter. When I have time, I'll go to the escort agency to find Fourth Master Wen and explain the matter clearly." Oyu Yang let out a long breath and said, "Okay, I can rest assured with you handling things." Then, she smiled at Zhong Xiaohua and said, "Xiaohua, you don't have to worry about this matter. We'll handle it." Zhong Xiaohua let out a long breath and said, "My second brother doesn't have much monthly income. If he also pays for my food and lodging, this escort trip will be for nothing. Damn tilde did he forget about the pile of money?" When Oyu Yang heard this, she also remembered something. She said to Zhong Xiaohua, "Xiaohua, wait a moment." With that, she went out. Not long after, she came back with a small wooden box. She handed it to Zhong Xiaohua and said, "Zhong Xiaohua, this was prepared for you a while ago. Now that you're back, I'll give it to you." Zhong Xiaohua was stunned. After hesitating for a moment, she took it and opened it. In an instant, she was like Zhong Xiaohu from last night. She asked in surprise, "Sister Oyu, so many banknotes. Are they for me?" Seeing Zhong Xiaohua's shocked expression, everyone chuckled. Chiu Tong explained, "This is the compensation for your death. Our Misty School's boss Oyu personally appointed it. It was originally 300 taels, but Boss Oyu felt that it was too little and directly increased it to 5,000 taels. Our mistress also felt that it was too little, so she took out 5,000 taels from the villa to round it up and give it to your family." Zhong Xiaohua looked at the banknotes and blinked. She said, "I never thought that I would be worth so much money. This pile of silver is taller than me, and heavier than me." Everyone laughed. "That's for sure. Zhong Xiaohua thought for a moment, then closed the wooden box and returned it to Ouyang Yang. She said, "Sister Ouyang, you've been so good to me. In my heart, you're just like my old sister Qianqian. If you're in danger, I'll naturally step forward bravely, just like how I would save my family. Besides, I'm fine. I didn't sacrifice myself, so I can't take this money." Zhong Xiaohua's actions were out of Ouyang Yang's expectations. She asked in disbelief, "Xiaohua, this is 10,000 taels of silver. You really don't want it?" Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "Sister Ouyang, to be honest, let alone 10,000 taels of silver, I haven't even seen 100 taels of silver before. But this is the compensation you gave me. If I really died, maybe you could give it to my family. But I'm fine now, so I naturally can't accept it." Ouyang Yang thought for a moment and said, "How about this? No matter what, you saved my life. To be honest, your sister Ouyang's life is very precious, far more valuable than this money. How about this banknote be my gift to you?" Zhong Xiaohua still refused. She said, "Sister Ouyang, didn't I just say that I saved you like how I saved my family? Do you think my family will give me money?" One wanted to give, the other didn't want to accept. After pushing back and forth for a long time, Zhong Xiaohua had no choice but to open the small wooden box and said, "Sister Ouyang, how about this? I accept your kindness." After saying that, she took out a banknote of 100 taels of silver from the wooden box and put it in her arms. She then said, "The weight of this 100 taels of silver in my heart is the same as the weight of 10,000 taels of silver in Sister Ouyang's heart. If I accept this 100 taels of silver, it means that I've accepted the 10,000 taels of silver in Sister Ouyang's heart. What do you think?" When Ouyang Yang heard this, her eyes lit up. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Xiaohua, you really have a lot of ideas. All right, since that's the case, I won't force you anymore. But you have to remember that you just said that you treat me as your family, then I will also treat you as my family in the future. I hope that you will really treat me as your sister in the future." When Zhong Xiaohua heard this, she was very happy and said, "Sister Ouyang, I really can't ask for more than to have you as my manor lord." When Ouyang Yang heard this, she rolled her eyes and said with a smile, "It's good that you know. I won't treat you unfairly in the future." Then she said to Qiu Tong, "When you go back, tell the manor's accountant that Xiaohua's monthly allowance is." Ouyang Yang thought for a while but didn't say a specific number. Qiu Tong knew that Ouyang Yang didn't know the monthly allowance given by the manor, so she said with a smile, "Miss, you don't have to worry about this. Since Xiaohua is in our manor, he won't be short of money in the future. I think we should give him 3 taels of silver a month first. Anyway, his food and clothes are all in the manor, and it's only pocket money for himself. Even if he gives it to his family, it's enough." When Zhong Xiaohua heard that her monthly allowance would be increased by 10 times, she was naturally happy and couldn't close her mouth. When Ouyang Yang saw that Zhong Xiaohua was happy, she didn't have any objections and expressed her agreement. Then she said to Zhong Xiaohua, "Xiaohua, what do you want to do in the manor in the future? Let Qiu Tong arrange it for you." Zhong Xiaohua thought for a while and said, "I think it's better if I follow Captain He. First, I can learn fist techniques. Second, I can learn how to plant herbs. I can also help my sister solve some problems." Ouyang Yang smiled and said, "Don't tell me Xiaohua is still thinking for your sister. Then it's up to you." Then she said to He Tianshu, "Then I'll have to trouble Captain He to take good care of Xiaohua in the future. Don't restrict his actions too much. If he wants to read, let him read. If he wants to practice, let him practice. What do you think?" He Tianshu smiled and said, "I'll follow manor head's wishes. Zhong Xiaohua is a very good child. I don't need to take care of her." Elder Yu also smiled and said, "Zhong Xiaohua is also very hardworking when it comes to practicing martial arts. She's really good." Everyone's praise made Zhong Xiaohua feel very uncomfortable. He scratched his head and said helplessly, "Am I really that good? Why didn't I realize it?" Just as he said that, he heard his stomach grumble. Zhong Xiaohua blushed again and said, "Sister Ouyang, we've been talking about it all morning. Is there still any breakfast to eat?" I haven't eaten the manners food in a long time. I really want to eat some. Everyone laughed. Please collect it. Thank you. Chapter 145. Misty School, Misty Mountain Villa, Meeting Hall. Ou Peng was enjoying a cup of tea. Could it be that he had so much free time to steal half a day of leisure? Ou Peng was extremely busy during this period of time. Luo Shui Gang had recently merged with Misty School. The 6 Misty Tigers and Shui Yupeng had racked their brains to come up with 5 3-year development plans. The hardships involved were not something an outsider could understand. If they developed too quickly, not only would their foundation be unstable, they would also attract the attention of the super sects. If they found any clues, the losses would outweigh the gains. If they remained stagnant, not only would they let down the brothers who had sacrificed their lives for the merger of the 2 sects, they would also disappoint the hearts of the Luo Shui Gang brothers. If the hearts of the people were scattered, it would be difficult to lead a team. Ou Peng knew this very well. Naturally, Shui Yupeng would not agree to this. Therefore, Ou Peng had been sighing to the heavens for a period of time. Whether it was Luo Shui Gang's 3-year development plans or Misty School's revised 5-year plan, the core idea was to raise the status of the gang in Jianghu and increase the influence of the gang in Jianghu. It was to become an important force in Jianghu. The realization of these goals depended on the expansion of Misty School and Luo Shui Gang's influence and proper management. The expansion of influence meant that the martial arts of the disciples would be greatly improved. When it came to the improvement of martial arts, the herbs in the forest was definitely the most direct shortcut for Misty School. It was the most heaven-defying dream. Therefore, Ou Peng had even greater expectations for the herbs in the forest this year. After meticulous planning by the upper echelons of Ethereal Sect, they had sent out countless disciples during the new year, including Lu Yuming, who was in charge of retrieving the herbs from the forest. After sending out all the disciples, Ou Peng could only wait anxiously. This time was different from the first time. Back then, he did not place much importance on this matter. He was happy if there was something, but if there was nothing, it did not matter. He did not hold much hope for it. However, this time, it was related to the development of Ethereal Sect. Ou Peng could not help but worry. But Ou Peng, who had rich experience in fighting in Jianghu, knew that no matter how secretive his whereabouts were, there would be many sects in Jianghu that would pay attention to him, including some super sects. Even if he was able to successfully obtain the herbs in the secret plane, the secret of the secret plane would be known by many sects in Jianghu. The things inside were not something that the 4 sects could share. In comparison, the gains did not make up for the losses. It was better to let the disciples of the sects take care of it. And the price of such a low profile was Ou Peng's daily anxiety and expectation. Waiting for the news of Lu Yueming's success, this kind of psychological pressure could not be shared by others. It was extremely heavy. A month ago, in the middle of the night, Lu Yuming came back alone in a carriage. When Ou Peng received the news, he was so excited that he almost used ethereal steps to welcome him. Thinking about it now, he was somewhat self-deprecating. He had long passed the age of impulsiveness, but under such great temptation, it was inevitable that he would lose his composure. His own excitement and loss of composure, and Shui Yupeng's puzzlement and blankness, was such a sharp contrast. Ou Peng was touched again. The ignorant were fearless, the ancients did not lie. Lu Yueming's efforts were not in vain. The group of people from the pharmacy hall were not given in vain. Just a few days ago, the pills that could increase one's cultivation were finally refined. This was a considerable amount of pills. If nothing went wrong, it would definitely be able to create a large number of core elite disciples. The strength of the ethereal sect would once again rise to another level. However, Ou Peng immediately thought of another problem. Shui Yupeng and the other disciples of the Luo Shui gang, should he give them a share? If he gave them the pills, there was no guarantee that they would not leak the news. If they did not take the pills, then there would be hidden dangers in the two-legged policy of the Misty School. Whether or not to take the pills was really a problem, and it needed to be carefully considered. Fortunately, everything had been prepared. They didn't even need to rely on the east wind. They only needed to make a decision. When all the senior and junior brothers were gathered, they could discuss it. It was no big deal. These two matters were official matters of the gang. As the highest decision-maker of the Misty School, Ou Peng naturally had the obligation to worry about it. And as an elder brother, he was most worried about his own sister. What happened some time ago was the most worrying thing for him. Ou Yang was attacked on a rainy night, and until now, there was no clue. All the clues were cut off at a certain point, and the disciples of the law enforcement hall were helpless. This made Ou Peng very angry. Although the Misty School could not be said to be one of the biggest gangs in Jianghu, it was still one of the most famous schools. Being bullied like this, and not being able to fight back, made him sullen. Fortunately, the incident of Ou Yang being attacked was very tightly controlled, and the people of Jianghu did not know about it. Otherwise, the Misty School would lose a lot of face. Ou Peng had always paid attention to her safety. Fortunately, Ou Yang was a lucky person and escaped. Although her body was injured, her life was not in danger. However, when he thought of his sister's willfulness, Ou Peng shook his head. Not to mention the matter of going to the south, he had persuaded her to bring more people, but she said that she had no value in Jianghu, and that it was fine as long as she left secretly, no one would care. In the end, such a big incident happened. Moreover, although the youth called Zhong something had sacrificed himself to save Ou Yang, the Misty School's pension was only 300 taels of silver. If his sister felt that it was too little, then fine, he would increase it to 5,000 taels. This was unprecedented. However, who asked him to save the sister of the gang leader of the Misty School? If anyone complained, he would also come to save them. However, when he sent the pension to her brother in the Lotus Escort Agency, Ou Yang actually doubled it. It was an unprecedented 10,000 taels of silver. With this as an example, how could he pay the pension in the future? Ou Peng shook his head with a wry smile. This sister of his was a sentimental person who cared about others the most. But then again, in this world, who had he and his sister owed? If this 10,000 taels of silver were to replace Ou Yang's life, what could he say? It was not a lot at all. Even if he used the whole Jianghu to exchange for his sister, it would not be enough. Thinking of this, Ou Peng could not help but shake his head. He lowered his head to drink tea and smiled. He did not know which hero in Jianghu was lucky enough to capture his sister's heart. Ou Yang was not young anymore. As her brother, he should be more concerned about her. While he was thinking, he suddenly felt that there were soft steps coming to the meeting hall. Speak of the devil, and the devil will appear. This person really had to be nagged. When the person turned the door of the hall, it was the owner of Huanxi Mountain Villa, Ou Yang. Other than Ou Yang, no one else was allowed to enter the assembly hall without prior notice. Even Ou Peng's wife was not allowed to enter. Of course, she never came. From this, it could be seen that Ou Peng's love for his sister had not diminished despite the passage of time. Ou Yang, who had entered the hall, was also surprised. In the past, when she came to the meeting hall, it was always crowded. This time, it was so quiet. She did not expect. Looking at her brother who was leisurely drinking tea, Ou Yang could not help but smile. She quickly walked forward and saluted Ou Peng. Ou Peng smiled and said, "There are no outsiders here. Sit wherever you want." Ou Yang sat down with a smile. She was as cute as a little swallow. Ou Peng looked at his sister lovingly and asked, "Yang how is your health recently?" Ou Yang replied, "Big brother, although my body is not easy to practice martial arts, it has been tempered by wind and rain. It is not as weak as you think and cannot withstand setbacks. The last injury was diagnosed by the doctor. I have already recovered. Now, I am very good." Ou Peng still said, "Yang seriously, in the future, don't do such a willful thing. When you go out again, you must bring enough outdoor and bodyguards. You were in danger this time. You made me worried to death. If there is such a thing again, I don't know how to live." Ou Yang smiled and said, "I know, Big brother. I will pay attention next time. This time, it was really unexpected. Now, I can't think of any reason. How is your side? Did you find any clues? Oyu Peng said awkwardly, alas, not yet. I will urge them to help you vent your anger. Oyu Yang said, you don't have to be so anxious. It doesn't matter if they target me. Please don't have any conspiracy against our Misty School. Big brother, you must be careful in the future. You must bring bodyguards when you go out. Oyu Peng smiled and said, I know. I will bring the stone cow with me as a giant bodyguard. By the way, why did Yang come here today? Are you rushing to find the murderer? Oyu Yang said, no, big brother. I will leave the matter of finding the murderer to you. I will not bother about it anymore. Today, I came to discuss something with you. Oyu Peng asked curiously, what is it? There is still a need to discuss. Oyu Yang said, big brother, do you still remember the boy who saved me? Oyu Peng said, I remember. I think his name was Zhong something. Speaking of this, I have to say a few words. You can't be so willful in the future. Our Misty School has a written rule. The amount of the pension is written in black and white. It may be fine to have a little more, but to think that you increased it so much, it is a little inappropriate. However, this matter is kept secret. Not many people know about it. Otherwise, it will have a bad impact. With your willful temper, how will you find a good husband in the future? Hearing this, Oyu Yang was unhappy and said, big brother, why are you always interrupting? Am I willful? What does this have to do with finding a good husband? Oyu Peng quickly waved his hand and said, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Big brother is old and likes to nag. Just listen in one ear and out the other. By the way, has the pension been given to his brother? That will save you from nagging all day long. Even if I don't see you, I know you are very worried. Speaking of this, Oyu Yang's face was full of excitement. She said with a smile, big brother, I came here today to talk to you about this matter. You don't have to pay the 10,000 taels of silver. You don't have to worry about the negative impact. In the future, you don't have to worry about people in the sect talking about this matter. Oyu Peng was stunned and said, what? Then, he realized, oh, that boy was found by you. Oyu Yang said in surprise, big brother, you are really amazing. You guessed it so quickly. Oyu Peng shook his head and said with a smile, how can this kind of child's play stump a big gang leader like me? Oyu Yang also smiled and said, we didn't find him. He came back on his own. This time, Oyu Peng was even more surprised. He said, he was not killed by the black-robed elder. At the very least, he should be seriously injured. Since he can come back on his own, his injuries must have healed. Oyu Yang was also surprised and asked, big brother, how do you know that his injuries have healed? Oyu Peng said with a smile, this is very normal. If his injuries are not good, how can he travel thousands of miles to come back to Pingyang City? Oyu Yang thought for a while and nodded slightly to show that it made sense. Then, Oyu Yang told Oyu Peng everything that Zhong Xiaohua told her in full detail. Oyu Peng was also stunned when he heard it. This kind of thing was really rare. At least to be able to escape from death and return to Pingyang City safely was already a miracle. Then, Oyu Peng asked, since that Zhong, what is it again? Oyu Yang said, called Zhong Xiaohua. Oyu Peng said with a smile, haha, Zhong Xiaohua. This name is interesting. It seems to be a girl's name. Oh right, since this Zhong Xiaohua is back, you definitely won't take back the 10,000 taels of silver. Just give it to him. Why did you say that you don't need it? Oyu Yang said, big brother's guess is right. But you guessed the beginning and not the end. Zhong Xiaohua rejected the 10,000 taels of silver. Under my insistence, he only took a 100 taels of silver. He also said, the weight of this 100 taels of silver in my heart is the same as the weight of 10,000 taels of silver in Sister Oyu's heart. If I accept this 100 taels of silver, it means that I have accepted the 10,000 taels of silver in Sister Oyu's heart. Big brother, don't you think this young man is very interesting? Oyu Peng touched his chin with his hand and said thoughtfully, "Yes, this Zhong Xiaohua is very interesting." "Then what do you mean by coming here today?" Oyu Yang said, "It's like this, big brother. In fact, on the way to the south last time, I saw Zhong Xiaohua practicing boxing very hard. Although his aptitude is very ordinary, his hard-working spirit is really comparable to yours when you were young. So, I promised him that when I came back from the south, I would ask you to let He Tianshu of the pharmacy hall teach him some of the internal strength mental cultivation methods of our Misty School." Oyu Peng listened and nodded slightly. "It's not impossible for you to think so. Anyway, even you said that his aptitude is ordinary. Let He Tianshu teach him some internal strength mental cultivation methods. It must be enough for him to learn for a lifetime." Oyu Yang continued, "But he refused the 10,000 taels of silver, which made me feel very sorry. Thinking about it, he didn't hesitate to block that fatal blow for me. If it wasn't for him, how could I safely return to the Huanxi Mountain Manor? I must repay this life-saving grace. Since he doesn't want the silver, I think, how about this, big brother, can you let him join the Misty School and become a disciple of the Misty School? This way, he can practice martial arts, which is Zhong Xiaohua's lifelong wish." Oyu Peng listened and laughed. "I thought it was something important that was worth us siblings to discuss. The matter of entering the Misty School as a disciple, although the standard is very high, this Zhong Xiaohua is definitely not qualified. But, since Yang has asked, how can I, as a big brother, not agree? Not to mention one, even if it's 10, so what? This is just a small matter, why is there a need to discuss it? Sigh, it's really infuriating to compare oneself to others. Zhong Xiaohua came out from the Guozhuang house and went through untold hardships just to enter the Misty School as a disciple and practice martial arts. But he couldn't fulfill his wish. Later on, even when he joined the Lotus Escort Agency, they still didn't accept him. Becoming a disciple of the Misty School? In his heart, he had long given up on this idea. But now, with just one sentence from Oyu Yang, Oyu Peng agreed. He didn't consider Zhong Xiaohua's condition at all, regardless of how old he was or what his aptitude was. He just nodded lightly and fulfilled the wish that Zhong Xiaohua yearned for day and night, and this was just a small matter. This really couldn't be said, relationships were the absolute truth. When Oyu Yang heard, she was overjoyed and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Big Brother. Actually, I know that the Misty School's disciples that Big Brother recruited are all people with outstanding aptitudes. This Zhong Xiaohua compared to them is like the difference between heaven and earth. This is really making things difficult for Big Brother." Oyu Peng flicked his sleeve and said, "Why are you being so polite with Big Brother? Although aptitude is important, hard work is also necessary. Even if Zhong Xiaohua is useless, it doesn't matter if the Misty School has one more disciple or not. Why don't you let He Tianshu be his master and teach martial arts in your Huanxi Mountain Villa? What do you think?" Oyu Yang clapped her hands and said, "Very good. Zhong Xiaohua's aptitude for martial arts is average. No, it should be said that it's very poor. I heard from He Tianshu that he practiced fist techniques for a long time, but he can't even practice a complete set. However, he is very knowledgeable about medicinal herbs and other knowledge. He has thoroughly read some of the books that I gave him. Perhaps he can be of help to me in the future." Oyu Peng said, "Then let's do it this way. Tomorrow, you bring He Tianshu and Zhong Xiaohua to the conference hall and deal with this matter, so that you don't keep thinking about it. Also, the problem of medicinal herbs should be solved slowly. The elders of the pharmacy hall are helpless. You don't have to worry too much about it. Don't let it affect your health." Oyu Yang said, "I know, Big Brother. It's because they can't solve it that I want to take over." Although there are ready-made herbs in the secret plane, it's not as convenient as planting them ourselves. We can only go to the secret plane once a year. The demand for medicinal herbs is far from meeting the needs of our sect. If we do as Big Brother thinks and carry forward the Misty School, we can't not solve this problem." Oyu Peng sighed and said, "I know you won't give up, but it must be on the premise of health." Oyu Yang smiled and said, "I know, Big Brother. Don't nag anymore. The brother and sister chatted for a while, and Ouyang Yang said goodbye and returned to the Huanxi mountain villa. Chapter 146. When Zhong Xiaohua returned to Huanxi Mountain Villa, his life returned to its original trajectory. He thought that since he had been away from the villa for so long, Nai Xiaoer and the others would definitely surround him and ask him all sorts of questions. He had already concocted a bunch of lies in his heart to evade them. However, the fact was that when they saw his return, they only showed great surprise in their eyes. They only exchanged simple greetings and showed their concern. They did not delve into the reason, which made Zhong Xiaohua very depressed. He felt like he had punched cotton. At the same time, he secretly admired the quality of this disciple of a big sect. His quality was really high. Just when Zhong Xiaohua wanted to throw away the lies and save his nose, a swarm of flies still made him lose his integrity. Last time, because Zhong Xiaohua was injured, the human-shaped flies in Huanxi Mountain Villa, who were led by Ma Jing, were treated better and left their bullying. They were puzzled for a long time. This time, Zhong Xiaohua disappeared for such a long time. They thought that Zhong Xiaohua had disappeared from the world and they would never see him again. However, Zhong Xiaohua suddenly appeared in their sight. How could they not be surprised? Therefore, they were like flies that smelled blood. They buzzed in front of Zhong Xiaohua all day long, wanting to know the movements of Zhong Xiaohua in the past 2 months. Zhong Xiaohua didn't want to pay attention to them, but after all, he was thin-skinned. After a long time, he had to tell them the nonsense that he had prepared to use to fool Nai Xiaoer and the others. When Ma Jing and the others' gossipy hearts were satisfied, they suddenly dispersed and no longer paid attention to Zhong Xiaohua. Zhong Xiaohua helplessly touched his nose and prayed secretly in his heart, my nose, don't blame me. It's not that I don't care about you, but I have no choice. People living in Jianghu have no choice." In the early morning of this day, Zhong Xiaohua didn't know that he had been hit on the head by a big pie. He still repeated his 3 articles, practicing boxing, eating, and farming. It seems that these are the mainstream of fantasy now. Zhong Xiaohua accidentally became a hipster. Although Ouyang Yang had already told him that he could control his own time and did not have to work in the fields, he was used to living in the fields after all. When he had nothing to do, he could not leave the herbal field. Moreover, it was going to be spring soon. A lot of herbs needed to be weeded and watered. Zhong Xiaohua was also willing to help. As he was waving a small hoe to shovel the weeds, he heard someone call his name. When he looked up, there were 2 people standing beside the field. They were He Tianshu and Qiu Tong. He smiled and walked over to greet them. "Sister Qiu Tong, why are you here?" Qiu Tong smiled and said, "Xiaohua, you're really busy. Didn't Miss say that you should control your time? Why are you in such a hurry to farm?" Zhong Xiaohua smiled and said, "I grew up in the fields, so I'm not used to leaving so suddenly. It's better to come and help." Qiu Tong said, "That's great. Captain, he doesn't need to be in a hurry to find more people. Zhong Xiaohua, come up quickly. Miss is looking for you and Captain He Tianshu was surprised and said, "What about me? What's the matter?" Qiu Tong smiled and said, "I don't know. Miss is so mysterious and won't say anything." Zhong Xiaohua said, "Okay, I'll go up right away." With that, Zhong Xiaohua tidied up and followed Qiu Tong and He Tianshu to the inner courtyard. Qiu Tong pointed at the door and said, "You guys go in yourselves. Miss is waiting inside. I still have things to do, so I won't accompany you." He Tianshu said, "Okay, go do what you need to do. It's not our first time here." With that, he led Zhong Xiaohua in. Qiu Tong stopped Zhong Xiaohua and asked, "Zhong Xiaohua, I'm going to the Lotus Escort Agency now. Do you have anything to do? Or do you have anything to tell your brother?" Zhong Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "It's nothing. Just tell my brother that I'm fine now, and he doesn't need to worry." Qiu Tong nodded and hurried out. Zhong Xiaohua followed He Tianshu to the main hall of the inner courtyard. In the main hall, Ouyou Yang was sitting on a chair and was a little anxious. When she saw them come in, she smiled and said, "You guys are finally here. Why are you so slow?" Zhong Xiaohua said embarrassedly, "Sister Ouyou, I was working in the fields, so I came a little late. Sorry for making you wait." When Ouyou Yang heard this, she was very happy and said with a smile, "It's okay. It's rare that you're not arrogant and worked in the fields. How can I blame you? Come, you two follow me to a place. There are some things to take care of." Zhong Xiaohua and He Tianshu found it strange that Ouyou Yang did not say anything. They looked at each other and followed Ouyou Yang out of the main hall. Pingyang City, Lotus Escort Agency. In Fourth Master Wen's house, Fourth Master Wen and his nephew Yu Dei were drinking fragrant tea and chatting. At this moment, someone hurried into the small courtyard and came to the door. Fourth Master Wen heard the footsteps and looked up. It was escort leader Luo. When Fourth Master Wen saw him, he could not help but frown. He then smiled and said, "It's escort leader Luo. Come in quickly." Escort leader Luo walked into the house with a smile. They greeted each other and sat down. Fourth Master Wen said, "Escort leader Luo, it's all thanks to you this time. We've gained a lot. You've worked hard. I'll remember your contribution. When I have the chance, I'll report to head escort leader and ask for your reward." Escort leader Luo quickly stood up and said with a smile, "It's nothing. This is my duty. It's what I should do. Besides, it's all thanks to Fourth Master's guidance." Fourth Master Wen smiled and said, "Escort leader Luo, you must be joking. It's you who did well. I'm just talking." Escort leader Luo adjusted his expression and said seriously, "Fourth Master Wen, you're wrong. Sailing the sea depends on the helmsman. Without your guidance, we wouldn't have a direction to work towards. No matter how much effort we put in, it would be useless. Who knows, we might even go further. The fact that you're willing to meet me means that your contribution is far greater than mine." Yu Dei looked at Fourth Master Wen and said with a smile, "Fourth Master, you don't have to be humble. Escort leader Luo is right. A good soldier is good, but a good general is good. This escort agency still relies on you for many things." Fourth Master Wen was overjoyed when he heard this. He twirled his sparse beard and grinned from ear to ear. After a while, Fourth Master Wen asked again, "Escort leader Luo, what brings you here today?" Escort leader Luo smiled and looked at Yu Dei, saying, "Nothing much. I just wanted to chat with Fourth Master about some matters regarding the agency." Yu Dei saw this and quickly stood up, saying, "If that's the case, Fourth Master, I'll take my leave first. I'll come visit another day." However, Fourth Master Wen waved his hand and said, "It's fine. Dei, sit back down for now. I have something to tell you later. Escort leader Luo, if you have something to say, just say it. Dei is my nephew and also someone from the Martial Arts Center. He can be considered a member of the agency. There are some things that we don't have to hide from him. Don't you think so?" Escort leader Luo thought for a moment and said, "It's fine. These are all matters that the agency deals with openly. Young Master Yu probably knows about it too." Hearing this, Yu Dei sat down again. Escort leader Luo continued, "Actually, it's not a big deal. It's just that the escort mission this time is rather far away and we're even celebrating the New Year outside. As time passed, some people in the escort team who aren't loyal to the agency started thinking about getting some benefits from the agency. They clamored for me to double their monthly salary. Fourth Master, don't you think this makes sense? You eat and drink at the agency and you even get subsidies for the long escorts. The agency has already treated you well and they can't go against their conscience. That's why I harshly reprimanded them. At this point, escort leader Luo paused and looked at Fourth Master Wen's expression. Seeing no change, he continued, but, then, he clenched his teeth as if he had made up his mind and said, "But Zhong Xiaohu, the bodyguard of the escort team, thought that you wanted him to be the deputy head of the escort team just because you made him my deputy. Everyone calls him deputy head of escort Zhong, and in order to win over the hearts of the people, he even gathered many bodyguards and escorts to pressure me into giving them a raise. Tell me, can someone like him, who doesn't see the big picture and only knows how to run his own small circle, be a good leader. Fourth Master Wen's expression changed slightly, but then he said nonchalantly, Millimeter, I see. I'll have a good talk with Zhong Xiaohu later and let him be your deputy. The most important thing is for him to cooperate with you and ensure the safety and success of this escort mission. His way of forming cliques is definitely wrong. Escort leader Luo smiled obsequiously and said, Fourth Master Wen is indeed farsighted and can see the essence of the problem. I'm just thinking about the future of the escort agency. Oh right, there's another question. Fourth Master Wen said, it's fine. Feel free to ask if you have any questions. Escort leader Luo then told him about his encounter with Zhong Xiaohua in the small town along the coast and how he made Zhong Xiaohua pay for his room and board. He then said, Fourth Master, don't you think I'm right? This Zhong Xiaohu's younger brother isn't even a member of our escort agency. Why should we let him take advantage of our agency for no reason? Yesterday, I especially went to the accounting office to take a look. That Zhong Xiaohu actually threw my words out of the window. The accounting office didn't receive any money from him at all. Do you think he still treats me as his superior? Does he still put the interests of the escort agency above all else in his heart? Fourth Master Wen thought for a moment and said to Yu Dai, call Zhong Xiaohu over. I'll ask him personally. When escort leader Luo heard this, he quickly waved his hands and said, Fourth Master, there's no need to make such a big fuss. I'm just here to nag you. Fourth Master Wen said to Yu Dai, go call him over. Don't say anything to him. He then turned to escort leader Luo and said, what you've said shows that you have a lot of feelings for the escort agency. When we help the brothers of the agency, we must treat the illness and save the life. We must make things clear. If it's Zhong Xiaohu's fault, I won't side with him in the slightest. Not long after, Zhong Xiaohu followed Yu Dai to Fourth Master Wen's room. When he saw escort leader Luo in the room, he was very surprised. He greeted the two of them separately and then sat on the chair by the door as instructed. After Zhong Xiaohu sat down, Fourth Master Wen looked at him and asked, Zhong Xiaohu, you've worked hard as escort leader Luo's assistant this time. You did well. However, I have two things to ask you. You must answer them properly. Zhong Xiaohu nodded and said, yes, Fourth Master. Please ask. Fourth Master Wen nodded slightly and said, is there someone in the escort agency who wants double the monthly salary? Did you do it for us? Zhong Xiaohu was stunned and thought to himself, didn't I already tell you about this when I came back? When he saw escort leader Luo drinking his tea with his head lowered, realization dawned on him. He said, Fourth Master Wen, it's like this. This escort mission is quite far away and we're celebrating the new year in a foreign country. Everyone's emotions are unstable and they're all homesick. Moreover, since it's the new year, the items there are naturally more expensive and everyone's expenses are high. Therefore, not just some people, but everyone, hoped that the escort agency could provide some subsidies, such as double or triple the monthly salary. They were afraid that there would be no precedent for this and would be rejected by escort leader Luo, so they came to me to discuss it first. I thought that since it's not easy for our brothers to travel abroad, we could forget about triple the monthly salary, but double the monthly salary should still be within our consideration. That's why I came to escort leader Luo to discuss it. Escort leader Luo didn't agree at that time and only told me to come back and tell you about it. I was busy when I came back and forgot about it. If you don't tell me today, I'll be letting my brothers down. Fourth Master Wen heard Zhong Xiaohu's words and said with a smile, the brothers of the escort agency must have had a hard time on this long journey. This kind of request is reasonable and human nature. I can understand. However, this matter still needs to be discussed by the higher-ups of the agency. It's not appropriate for me to express my opinion now, but I'll definitely give everyone a satisfactory answer in the future. Escort leader Luo and Zhong Xiaohu both nodded. However, even though they nodded in the same way, their thoughts couldn't be the same. Fourth Master Wen nodded in satisfaction. He hesitated for a moment before continuing, also, Zhong Xiaohu, I've heard escort leader Luo talk about your younger brother accompanying you. He suggested that your younger brother pay a nominal fee. What do you think? Zhong Xiaohu was stunned when he heard this. He said strangely, about that, escort leader Luo wanted my younger brother to pay for his board and lodging, but I thought that my younger brother should be able to squeeze with me, so the lodging fee should be waived. It should be fine to just pay for his meals. I've already paid this fee to the gentleman accompanying the team. If escort leader Luo feels that it's not enough and wants to pay for his accommodation, I'll make up for it. As a member of the agency, following the rules of the agency is my basic duty. What? I just asked the accountant yesterday. You didn't pay at all. Escort leader Luo blurted out. Fourth Master Wen frowned. The reason he hesitated just now was because he didn't want to bring up Zhong Xiaohua's matter. This involved Huanxi Manor, but escort leader Luo was tactless enough to bring up Zhong Xiaohu's bad reputation. If he didn't bring it up, it would seem that he was biased towards Zhong Xiaohu. Now that he heard that Zhong Xiaohu had already paid, he immediately felt that escort leader Luo was being too unreasonable and suspected that he was jealous of Zhong Xiaohu's ability. Compared to Zhong Xiaohu's actions, the difference was like heaven and earth. He found Zhong Xiaohu more pleasing to the eye. Thus, he turned to Yu Dei and said, Nephew Dei, I'll have to trouble you again. Go to the accountant's office and ask the gentleman accompanying the team to come here. Yu Dei smiled and said, It's fine, Fourth Master. I'll go now. Not long after, the accountant who accompanied the team followed Yu Dei to Fourth Master Wen's room. When he saw everyone in the room, he was puzzled. After greeting everyone, he stood to the side and asked, May I know why Fourth Master has asked this subordinate to come here? Fourth Master Wen smiled and asked, I want to verify something with you. You just have to say yes or no. You don't have to care about anyone's face. When the gentleman heard this, he looked at escort leader Luo and Zhong Xiaohu in confusion. He nodded and said yes. Fourth Master Wen said, Zhong Xiaohu said that he has already paid his younger brother's room and board fees to you. Is that true? When the gentleman heard this, he immediately understood and hurriedly answered, Yes, that's true. When escort leader Luo heard this, he was so anxious that he almost stood up. Fourth Master Wen saw this and waved his hand for him to sit down. He then asked, Then why hasn't the accountant's office credited the money? The gentleman smiled and said, It's like this, Fourth Master. Zhong Xiaohu handed the money to me on the morning he returned. However, there were some urgent matters at home and I took a few days off to take care of the house. I was only able to leave and return to the escort agency today. The money has already been credited to the account this morning. Fourth Master can send someone to check the account. When escort leader Luo heard this, his face turned ashen. He was filled with regret and thought to himself, It's fine if your family has some urgent matters. How could I forget about this matter? How unlucky. When Fourth Master Wen heard this, he frowned and said, This is your fault. How could the escort agency's money not credited to the account before returning home? The gentleman repeatedly cried out that he was wronged and said, Fourth Master, it's not that I didn't credit it to the account first. I carefully calculated the money for the escort team and handed it to the accountant before returning home. However, Zhong Xiaohu's younger brother is only a child. His daily meals are limited and the total amount is no more than 1 tael of silver. Since we have to settle the account, this subordinate naturally can't let Zhong Xiaohu suffer a loss. When he finished speaking, he took out a few taels of silver and handed it to Zhong Xiaohu. Zhong Xiaohu didn't stand on ceremony and reached out to take it. When Fourth Master Wen heard this, his expression changed greatly. Just as he was about to speak, footsteps came from outside the door. When Fourth Master Wen looked at the door, he saw Qiu Tong from Huanxi Manor. Fourth Master Wen quickly stood up and walked quickly to the door to welcome her. He said cheerfully, Miss Qiu Tong, what brings you to our escort agency today? What a rare guest. Qiu Tong smiled and said, Fourth Master Wen is too polite. I'm just a servant in Huanxi Manor. I don't deserve such a welcome from Fourth Master. Fourth Master Wen smiled and said, Miss Cho Tong is too humble. Who doesn't know that in the inner courtyard of Huanxi Manor, Miss Cho Tong's words carry enormous weight? Other than the Manor Lord, everyone listens to his orders. Cho Tong said, this is all the Manor Lord's kindness. Don't take it seriously. Then, Fourth Master Wen invited Cho Tong into the house. Cho Tong walked into the house and saw that there were many people inside. She couldn't help but frown and say, Fourth Master is handling matters? Should I come back later? Fourth Master Wen smiled and said, it's fine. It's already done. Miss, please take a seat first. I'll send them away first. When Cho Tong heard this, she didn't stand on ceremony. She looked around at everyone. When she saw Zhong Xiaohu sitting down, her eyes lit up. Then, she found a seat at the head of the table and sat down. When Fourth Master Wen saw Cho Tong take a seat, he said to everyone, the matter of the food and lodging fees has been settled. I still have other matters to attend to here. You can go back first. I'll find you later. When everyone heard this, they stood up and were about to leave. Cho Tong called out, everyone, please wait. Please collect it. Thank you. Chapter 148. Everyone stopped when they heard Cho Tong ask them to stay and looked at her in confusion. Fourth Master Wen knew that things were bad when he saw Cho Tong ask them to stay. Escort Luo had complained about Zhong Xiaohu without knowing the severity of the situation, and one of the things he had said was related to Zhong Xiaohua. He knew very well who this Zhong Xiaohua was and her relationship with Huanxi Manor. If Ouyang Yang knew about the food and lodging expenses, it would be a disaster. What was originally a small matter would become a big matter, and he would be implicated. He hurriedly said, Miss Cho Tong, we've finished our discussion with the escort agency. Let them do their own things. Why have you come to the agency this time? Let us hear about it. With that, he waved his hand, indicating for everyone to leave. Cho Tong smiled and said, Fourth Master Wen, the matter I'm here to talk about today is related to Zhong Xiaohu. Also, I heard Fourth Master mention something about the food and lodging expenses. I don't know if it has anything to do with what I want to talk about. Why don't everyone stay and listen? Fourth Master Wen had no choice but to ask everyone to sit down. Cho Tong looked around and said to Escort Luo, is this the famous Escort Luo of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency? Escort Luo was pleasantly surprised when he heard this. He stood up and said, that's me. Miss, you actually know my lowly name? Cho Tong smiled, of course I know. Even our Manor Lord knows. You're very good. Haha, very good. Escort leader Luo was laughing so hard that he couldn't close his mouth. He even forgot to sit down and just stood there foolishly. Cho Tong looked at Zhong Xiaohu again and said with a smile, Zhong Xiaohu, we meet again. Zhong Xiaohu stood up and cupped his fists. Hello, Miss Cho Tong. Cho Tong said, sit down. Your brother Zhong Xiaohua told me to see you and tell you that he's doing well. You don't have to worry. Zhong Xiaohu said, thank you, Miss Cho Tong. Xiaohua has caused a lot of trouble for you in the villa. With you here, I'm very relieved. Cho Tong nodded, then turned to Fourth Master Wen and said, actually, I didn't come here for anything important. I'm just here to deliver the money on behalf of our Manor Lord. After he finished speaking, he took out 10 taels of silver from his purse and threw it on the table in front of Fourth Master Wen. Fourth Master Wen was shocked and asked, Miss Cho Tong, what does the Manor Lord mean by this? Cho Tong smiled coldly and said, it's nothing much. It's just that our Manor's Zhong Xiaohua came back with your escort company's carriage. Didn't you want her to pay for her food and lodging? Our Manor head said that there's no need to talk about food and lodging, even the carriage fees will be paid to you. Fourth Master Wen, let your escort leader Luo see if these 10 taels of silver are enough. If it's not enough, tell me the amount and I'll pay for it. When Fourth Master Wen heard this, his expression immediately changed. Escort leader Luo, who was standing, turned pale and fell into his chair with a thump. Fourth Master Wen hurriedly smiled and said, Miss Cho Tong, is there a need for this? The Lotus Flower Escort Company and Huanxi Manor are one entity. How can one family speak of two different things? This is a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Qiu Tong said, we naturally think of one family, but some people don't think so. Our manor lord was very angry and almost wanted to come here himself. I wanted to be familiar with Fourth Master Wen, so I hurriedly persuaded him and took on this task. Fourth Master, you can do as you see fit. Fourth Master Wen turned to glare at escort leader Luo and said, the one who tied the bell should untie it. Escort leader Luo, what do you think we should do? Escort leader Luo seemed to have lost his mind from fright and muttered, that just now, the accountant already said that there's no need to pay for lodging or carriage fees. It's only about 900 copper coins. There's no need to use so much. When Fourth Master Wen heard this, he cursed inwardly, idiot. Just as he was about to say something, Qiu Tong laughed angrily and said, Fourth Master, so this is the escort leader of the escort company. He really is very talented. Our Huanxi Manor doesn't lack this bit of silver. Just take these 10 taels of silver as Zhong Xiaohua's food expenses. If there's more, just take it as a reward for you, escort leader Luo. Fourth Master Wen, Qiu Tong will take her leave now. The manor lord is still waiting for a reply. After saying this, she stood up and left with a flick of her sleeves. How could Fourth Master Wen let Qiu Tong leave just like that? He hurriedly chased after her and shouted, Miss Qiu Tong, please wait. Please wait. Listen to me. Qiu Tong and Fourth Master Wen, one walking and one chasing, arrived at the small courtyard. The people in the room didn't dare to sit any longer. They hurriedly stood up and chased out of the room. At this moment, they suddenly saw the guard Xiao Sai leading a disciple from the Misty School into the small courtyard. When he saw Fourth Master Wen, he immediately shouted, Fourth Master, this is a disciple from the Misty School. He said he was looking for Zhong Xiaohu. I heard that he was here with you, so I brought him here. Is Zhong Xiaohu here with you? Hearing Xiao Sai's words, everyone stopped in their tracks and looked at Zhong Xiaohu with astonishment. Zhong Xiaohu was also astonished and stood there in a daze. Why was a disciple from the Misty School looking for him? 2 flowers bloomed, each representing one branch. Speaking of which, when Zhong Xiaohua and He Tianshu followed Ouyou Yang out of the hall, they didn't go to the outer courtyard. Instead, they went deeper into the inner courtyard. Zhong Xiaohua was ignorant and only knew to follow elder sister Ouyou. He Tianshu, on the other hand, was alarmed. How could he enter the inner courtyard so easily? He didn't know what kind of medicine Manor Lord Ouyou was selling. The 3 people walked through several courtyards and arrived at a small corner door. The wooden door of the corner door was tightly shut. Ouyou Yang walked in front of the door and pushed it open. She directly walked through the corner door with Zhong Xiaohua and He Tianshu following behind her. He Tianshu's eyes lit up. Behind the corner door was a lush garden. On both sides of the corner door stood several spirited young disciples. However, these disciples were dressed like the Misty School. He Tianshu couldn't help but stare blankly when he saw this. After thinking for a bit, he came to a conclusion. Sure enough, when the disciples from the Misty School saw Ouyou Yang push open the door and enter, they hurriedly bowed respectfully and said, Welcome Manor Lord. Ouyou Yang smiled and waved her hand, saying, You guys have also worked hard. I'll have to trouble you to bring me to the discussion hall. The young disciple at the front also hurriedly stepped forward and said, Manor Lord, please follow me. This disciple will bring you there. After saying that, he led the way. Ouyou Yang and the other 2 followed behind him and walked towards the discussion hall. As He Tianshu walked, his heart was secretly churning. Every time he returned to the Misty School, he had to go out from the side door of the Huanxi Mountain Villa and then go around to the front door of the Misty Mountain Villa. He thought that Manor Lord Ouyou usually did this, but he didn't expect that there was such a shortcut in the inner courtyard. However, after thinking about it, it was normal. The Huanxi Mountain Villa and the Huanxi Mountain Villa were built adjacent to each other. How could there not be adjacent passages? It would be abnormal if there wasn't. But now, Ouyang Yang unexpectedly didn't avoid him and led him through the shortcut. It must be because of the meritorious service he made in the south. She didn't treat him as an outsider. He didn't expect that he would have such an opportunity after being demoted to the Huanxi Mountain Villa to plant herbs. It was really a great fortune. However, he immediately thought of Zhong Xiaohua, who made the greatest meritorious service in the south. He immediately knew that compared to Zhong Xiaohua, his meritorious service was like a firefly to the bright moon. He still benefited from Zhong Xiaohua. After all, after Zhong Xiaohua came to the Huanxi Mountain Villa, all the martial arts she learned were taught by him. Presumably, Ouyang Yang loved the house and its crow. As for the sword moves that Zhong Xiaohua used to kill people, they were taught by Yu Lao, but he automatically ignored it. Thinking of martial arts, He Tianshu's heart moved again. He instantly understood the real purpose of today's visit to the Misty School. Didn't Zhong Xiaohua always want to learn the mental cultivation method of internal strength? Ouyang Yang brought him and Zhong Xiaohua to the Misty School to ask Master Ouyang to allow him to teach Zhong Xiaohua internal strength. Thinking of the huge benefits that Zhong Xiaohua brought to him by only learning the incomplete martial arts, He Tianshu was very eager to try. He was looking forward to what inexplicable benefits would fall on him if he taught Zhong Xiaohua internal strength. However, it was just a simple fist technique, and it was already so difficult for Zhong Xiaohua to learn. It gave him a headache. If he were to teach him a profound inner force cultivation method, it would be a challenge for him. Thinking of Zhong Xiaohua's poor aptitude, He Tianshu felt a headache. Just as He Tianshu was worrying about his gains and losses, the disciple had already led them to the front of the meeting hall. The disciple whispered to Ouyang Yang, "Master, we've arrived at the meeting hall. This disciple will take his leave first." Ouyang Yang smiled, "Sorry to trouble you." After the disciple left, she said to He Tianshu and Zhong Xiaohua, "The two of you, come with me." After saying that, she led them into the meeting hall. Although He Tianshu was a disciple of the Misty School, his rank wasn't high enough. He had only heard of the meeting hall, but had never been inside. Even when he was questioned about the attack on the rainy night, he was only questioned in the law enforcement hall. He knew that this was the core area of the Misty School, so he had long been cautious and walked respectfully behind Ouyang Yang. He was well behaved and didn't dare to cross the line. As for Zhong Xiaohua, although he didn't know much about worldly affairs, he had read a lot of books and had improved a lot in the past 6 months. When he first entered the meeting hall, he still stuck his head out to look around, but the solemn and deep meeting hall immediately made him feel something. Seeing that He Tianshu's footsteps were steady, he immediately stopped looking around and became well behaved. Today's meeting hall's discussion was obviously not of a high level. There were many people in the hall. Other than the hall masters and elders sitting on the chairs on both sides, there were also many disciples standing behind them. Everyone seemed to be whispering to each other about something. Seeing the 3 people who walked in without any notice, the crowd immediately stopped. Dozens of gazes fell on the 3 of them. When they saw that it was Ouyang Yang, everyone suddenly understood. However, when they looked behind them, everyone was confused. Who were these 2 people? There were even 2 people who made a sound, expressing their obvious astonishment in their hearts. When Hall Master Bai Dong of the Alchemy Hall saw that He Tianshu actually walked behind Ouyang Yang and entered the assembly hall, he was very astonished. He let out a soft "ah" and thought to himself, why did this kid run into the assembly hall? I don't know why Manor Lord Ouyang brought him here. Could it be that he has the intention of promoting him? Why didn't I get any information at all? A series of questions made him confused. The other person who made a sound was Zhong Xiaohua's old acquaintance. It was Wenhai who had saved him in Lu Town. As Ou Peng's disciple, Wenhai was standing behind the hall masters with Xueqing. When he saw Zhong Xiaohua, he was very surprised. He felt that this young man was very familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. That was why he made a surprised sound. That's right, the matter of saving him happened a year ago. Zhong Xiaohua was still growing. At this time, he already looked a little different from a year ago. Moreover, when Wenhai saw him a year ago, he was beaten black and blue. It was even more different from now. It was also thanks to Wenhai being the direct disciple of sect master Ou of the Misty School. His aptitude was incomparably outstanding. That was why he was able to find the feeling of the past from the dusty memories. However, he couldn't confirm it. After being surprised, he pulled Xueqing, who was next to him, and whispered a few words in her ear. When Xueqing heard it, her calm face was also full of surprise. She stared at Zhong Xiaohua carefully. After looking for a moment, she shook her head. Of course, Xueqing was wearing a mask. Not only did others look down on her, she also couldn't see others clearly. Moreover, with her cold personality, why would she pay attention to an unrelated child? Naturally, she couldn't recognize him. When Wenhai saw that Xueqing wasn't sure and didn't say anything else. When Ou Peng saw Ou Yang bringing people in, his face revealed a smile. He pointed to the chair beside him and said, "Yang come and sit here." When Ou Yang heard this, she quickly walked over. Ou Yang left, but Tianshu didn't dare to leave. He hurriedly stopped in his tracks. Zhong Xiaohua, who was behind him, didn't know. Seeing that Ou Yang didn't tell him to stop, he naturally followed suit. When Tianshu suddenly stopped, he was caught off guard. When he saw that Tianshu couldn't stop in time, he bumped into Tianshu's back. Zhong Xiaohua reflexively pushed him away. Although it was a casual push, Zhong Xiaohua's hand weighed more than 1,000 pounds. Tianshu was caught off guard and immediately fell forward. Fortunately, Tianshu's martial arts were good. He immediately held onto a pole and steadied himself. However, this caused him to stagger half a step. Then, Zhong Xiaohua's low complaint sounded behind him. "Captain why did you suddenly stop?" Tianshu really wanted to turn around and pinch Zhong Xiaohua's neck to explain to him. However, this was the meeting hall. He didn't dare to say half a word. He gritted his teeth and didn't move his body. He took 2 steps back and happened to be parallel to Zhong Xiaohua. All of this happened in a flash. When everyone came to their senses and roared with laughter, Tianshu was already standing beside Zhong Xiaohua. Taking advantage of everyone's laughter, Tianshu used his right hand to knock Zhong Xiaohua's arm and whispered, "Don't talk. Just stand here." When Zhong Xiaohua heard the laughter of the crowd, he was not very happy. What was the big deal? It was just an accident. Although Tianshu's face was a little red, he knew that everyone in the hall was a prominent figure in the sect. He could not afford to offend any of them. Naturally, he did not dare to complain a single word. When Ou Peng saw this scene, he couldn't help but laugh. It had been a long time since such an interesting thing happened in the meeting hall. The only one who didn't know the details was Ou Yang, who had her back to them. When she sat down on the chair, she looked at the blushing Tianshu and Zhong Xiaohua with a face full of doubt. She was very puzzled.